Chapter 496. A good first step in sacrificial refining of a magic treasure was half the battle. After that, it was simply a matter of patience and time. Lin Feng first put away the dragon divine sky armor, then looked at the yellow dragon corpse in front of him. At this moment, only a body of dragon scales, skeleton, dragon tendons, and dragon blood remained. Although Jieyu was only at the level of a demon king, he was an armored black dragon. The dragon scales were even more valuable. Under the catalyzing effect of the yellow dragon and flame dragon's supernatural power, their potential was very high. Therefore, Lin Feng ultimately used the original black dragon scales instead of the yellow dragon scales. But this did not mean that the yellow dragon scales were useless. After all, they were dragon scales left behind by a yellow dragon with an indestructible demon soul. At this moment, Lin Feng had a rough idea in his mind. Therefore, he put away the yellow dragon scales and flicked his finger. The dragon blood sealed by his purple chi supernatural power flew into the dark heaven-time light grotto heaven. In there, apart from Lin Feng's 3 disciples, his own iron tree clone had been cultivating in seclusion. Lin Feng sent in the yellow dragon blood and poured it all over the iron tree clone. The iron tree clone's hands changed continuously as he circulated his supernatural power to the extreme to absorb the dragon blood essence. For the iron tree clone, which was still at the yuanying stage, the spiritual power contained in the indestructible demon soul dragon blood essence was too majestic. Not many early yuanying cultivators could absorb such a powerful blood essence. Lin Feng's actions were suspected of spoiling things through excessive enthusiasm. But his clone's foundation was too strong. At this moment, the Shura iron tree showed its great potential and endurance as one of the 4 great spiritual plants of heaven and earth. After being irrigated by the yellow dragon blood essence, it was a little unbearable at first, but as time went on, it became more and more energetic. The iron tree clone's entire body was soaked in the yellow dragon blood essence. Majestic and tyrannical demonic power and spiritual chi poured into his limbs, every pore, and every acupoint like a monstrous flood. Under the nourishment of the yellow dragon blood essence, the iron tree clone's power grew rapidly. Outside the cave, Lin Feng nodded in satisfaction, and then sent out a thought to Jieyu and his wife who were staying in the cave residence's stone room. Jieyu and White Light husband and wife came before Lin Feng together. Jieyu's expression was somewhat perturbed. Although his wife White Light's expression was calm, her gaze was also somewhat uneasy. Previously, when Lin Feng was refining the dragon deity sky armor, they all felt it. As pure-blooded dragons, Jieyu and his wife were the most sensitive to the aura of the dragon race. Moreover, that yellow dragon had cultivated to the immortal demon soul realm when it was alive. Even after its death, the dragon's might did not dissipate. Both husband and wife were a little nervous at the moment. They didn't know why Lin Feng had called them over. With a thought from Lin Feng, a complete set of yellow dragon skeleton floated in front of Jieyu and his wife. Silently he said, "Jieyu, you've been on this seat's mountain for some time. All along, you've been doing your best. This seat has seen all of this." Jiefeng hurriedly said he didn't dare. Lin Feng continued, "This set of dragon bones was gifted to this seat by the great Qin dynasty. This seat is now bestowing it to you. As for how to deal with it, you can decide for yourself." Jiefeng was stunned. His spiritual awareness probed the dragon bones. That overwhelming dragon's might immediately made him realize that this was the skeleton of a dragon king that had attained the immortal demon soul realm in the past. Happiness came too suddenly. Jieyu was actually stunned for a moment. Although it was the remains of a yellow dragon that was not of the same race as him, he could also refine and obtain the power within, allowing his cultivation to advance by leaps and bounds. After Jieyu came back to his senses, he was overjoyed. "Thank you, Sect Master." He paused for a moment and looked hesitantly at Lin Feng, then at his wife, White Light, who was beside him. Lin Feng smiled faintly. "The thing is bestowed to you. As for how to deal with it, you can decide for yourself. Refine it yourself or give it to someone else. This seat won't care." The joy on Jieyu's face grew even thicker. White Light's gaze towards her husband was filled with gentleness, but she didn't say much. She only thanked Lin Feng together with Jieyu. Returning to the cave-dwelling stone room, Jie Feng took out the yellow dragon's skeleton like presenting a treasure. He smiled. Wife, quickly refine it. At that time, don't mention mid-stage Demon King. Even late-stage Demon King can be achieved in one go. In the future, attaining an immortal demon soul is also in the bag. White Light shook her head. Husband, it's because you're a member of Xianmen Tianzong and you're doing things diligently. That's why Sect Master Lin bestowed this set of dragon bones to you. Although he clearly said that you can decide how to deal with it, I'm a guest here after all. It's not appropriate for you to give it to me. Jieyu still wanted to say more when White Light raised her hand to cover his mouth. Husband, this is your fortuitous encounter. I don't wish for you to give it to me. Compared to myself, I hope to see you raise your strength and cultivation even more. Jieyu laughed bitterly. Your talent is better than mine. Giving it to you isn't considered a waste. I won't undervalue myself. After I refine this set of dragon bones, I can definitely advance to mid-stage Demon King immediately. In the future, my path to charge to late-stage Demon King will also be much smoother. But whether or not I can attain an immortal demon soul is still unknown. White Light smiled. I believe you can definitely do it. Do you still remember the day of our wedding? You said that one day, you'll bring me to swim in the dragon pool openly, and let others have nothing to say. Jieyu looked up at the ceiling of the stone chamber and murmured, I remember, I really remember. Lin Feng had no intention of listening to the dragon couple's private conversation. Indeed, Lin Feng wouldn't care about how they used the yellow dragon bones after bestowing them to Jieyu. Of course, Lin Feng's intention of bestowing the dragon bones was to raise Jieyu's strength. The old black dragon's sense of belonging to Xianmen Tianzong was getting stronger and stronger. Raising his strength was only beneficial. As for whether or not it would be a waste of resources, that was not to the extent of it. The smelting black dragon was actually one of the races with the greatest potential and stamina among the many primordial celestial dragon races. The higher one's cultivation realm, the stronger one's strength would be compared to other dragons of the same level. However, the black dragon race was difficult to cultivate, and their numbers were relatively few. Therefore, there were very few smelting black dragons that attained the immortal demon soul realm. To be fair, Jieyu's talent wasn't considered too high in the dragon race. At the very least, it couldn't be compared to his wife. But in fact, it wasn't low either. It was above average. Due to the immense psychological pressure in recent years, he actually hadn't achieved the results he should have. With focused grooming, the old black dragon still had a lot of potential to be unearthed. While pondering, Lin Feng sensed that Xiao Yan and Zen Master Dade had returned to the mountain together. In the Wuzhou Xiao family, the person Xiao Yan was most worried about was his grandfather. And as the head of the family, it was impossible for old man Xiao to abandon the entire family and follow Xiao Yan to Mount Yujing alone. However, old man Xiao was experienced in the ways of the world. He knew that in the clash between the two colossi, Xianmen Tianzong and the Mount Shu Sword sect, only a small ripple would be enough to destroy the Xiao family. Therefore, even though he felt that it was difficult to leave his homeland, in order to not make things difficult for Xiao Yan, he still decided to go with Xiao Yan. However, he hoped that Xiao Yan could protect the entire Xiao family. Nowadays, Xiao Yan had long since become indifferent to the feelings of his clansmen. He had an attitude of accepting people who were willing to leave Wuzhou. Due to the attraction of Xiao Yan's current position and the power of Xianmen Tianzong behind him, the majority of the Xiao family were willing to follow. However, there were still some people who were greedy for the glory of the Xiao family being the only family in Wuzhou. Here, the Xiao family had deep roots, branches and leaves extending to every corner of Wuzhou. They were practically already in existence like a local tyrant. Even the mayor of Wuzhou was somewhat courteous to the Xiao family. If they moved under the eyes of Xianmen Tianzong and Xiao Yan, it would be hard to avoid having a lot more misgivings when doing things. It was far away like this in Wuzhou, yet they could borrow Xiao Yan's power to be free and unfettered. Some people were even secretly delighted in their hearts. Old man Xiao left Wuzhou together with Xiao Yan. Without his control, they could be even more unbridled. Xiao Yan and Old man Xiao saw all of this. Old man Xiao sighed in his heart while Xiao Yan had an indifferent attitude. So the two of them only brought along the clansmen who were willing to follow them, and returned to Kunlun Mountain. Even so, there were still quite a few people with big families and businesses. Old man Xiao pondered for a long time and didn't want to cause trouble for Xiao Yan. In the end, he rejected Xiao Yan's repeated proposal for them to head to Fenshin Cliff. Instead, he led his clansmen to Shazhou City to settle down. Xiao Yan's persuasion was fruitless, and he could only helplessly agree. Luckily, Shazhou was really much closer than Wuzhou. Furthermore, it was within the range of Xianmen Tianzong's influence. Lin Feng actually didn't mind the Xiao family going up the mountain. They lived on Fenshin Cliff anyways. Furthermore, all contact with the outside world couldn't be hidden from Lin Feng's eyes and ears. If someone wanted to bribe and collude, Lin Feng would also be able to discover it. So he didn't care too much about this. After Xiao Yan and Zen Master Dade came to report to him, Lin Feng left Xiao Yan behind. After this period of training, the true fire in Xiao Yan's body gradually stabilized. His own mana has also been honed to the point, already having the possibility of assailing the late stage of the golden elixir. The only problem is that when facing the tribulation, he has to be wary of the true fire causing trouble again. Lin Feng lightly flicked his finger, and a speck of light landed in front of Xiao Yan. The speck of light became larger. It was a block of crimson red wood. It was a foot long. In the center of the wood, there was a faint flicker of fire, like a living creature breathing, one bright, one dark, constantly crisscrossing. Xiao Yan's eyes lit up. It's the Wutong tree's heart. Back in the Cloud Forest world, he used this item to help him uproot the Cloud Forest tree. Lin Feng nodded and smiled. That's right. I'll need this treasure to help you get through the Yin Wind disaster and achieve the late stage of the golden elixir. Follow me. Lin Feng flew first and entered the dark sky time light grotto heaven again. Xiao Yan quickly followed him. Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, and Yu Hongyan were still cultivating in seclusion at the moment. Lin Feng brought Xiao Yan to the grotto heaven under the small treasure tree and handed the Wutong tree's heart to the young fellow. Xiao Yan sensed the Wutong tree's heart burning, but not painful. Instead, it vaguely carried a noble and elegant warmth, and he slowly felt his mental state becoming steadier. A majestic and primitive exuberant life force surged in the Wutong tree's heart, like an inextinguishable fire. Xiao Yan sat with his legs crossed and placed the Wutong tree's heart in front of him. He did not want to refine it, but he wanted to borrow the exuberant, gentle, noble, and proud fire spirit's power conception to help him merge the three true fires inside his body. Xiao Yan slowly closed his eyes and slowly immersed himself in the cultivation of the path technique. On the other hand, Lin Feng stood silently in the grotto heaven to observe his four disciples' movements. All of a sudden, he clearly sensed a Yin wind hovering above Zhu Yi's head. It was the Yin wind disaster from the middle stage of the golden elixir art to the late stage of the golden elixir art. Chapter 497. If a mid-stage golden elixir cultivator wanted to advance to the late-stage golden elixir, they had to overcome the Yin wind tribulation. The spiritual qi gathered by the cultivator's tribulation would turn into a Yin wind that blew from the Baihui acupoint on the top of the head. In the blink of an eye, the soul would be blown away and turned into dust. The Yin fire tribulation was to burn away the impurities in the golden elixir, while the Yin wind tribulation was to polish the flaws on the surface of the golden elixir. After these two hurdles, a cultivator's golden elixir could reach the flawless realm and prepare for the nascent soul formation. At this moment, Zhu Yi began to challenge the Yin wind tribulation and attack the late-stage golden elixir realm. This was a hurdle that no one could avoid. Every cultivator had to pass this hurdle if they wanted to advance to the late-stage golden elixir. Even if Lin Feng had advanced because of the system's reward, he still had to overcome the Yin wind tribulation. However, he had accumulated a lot and had a profound Tao, so the Yin wind tribulation didn't cause any danger. But now Zhu Yi was undergoing the tribulation. Lin Feng observed and nodded. He knew that if Zhu Yi wanted to pass this hurdle, it wouldn't be difficult as long as there were no major accidents. This was the benefit of having accumulated a lot of experience. Many mid-stage golden elixir cultivators were afraid of the Yin wind tribulation and didn't dare to advance at all. As for people like Zhu Yi and the others, they were very calm. They calmly endured the Yin wind tribulation and let it help them polish their golden elixir. Seeing that there were no problems with Zhu Yi's cultivation, Lin Feng retracted his gaze. He thought for a moment, and looked up at the void in the distance in the mysterious heaven-time light grotto heaven. His gaze seemed to pass through layers of space and land on the disciples' abode on Yujing Mountain. Even though the group of junior disciples dispersed and returned to their own rooms, there were still some people who still gathered together in twos and threes, still excitedly discussing the battle between Lin Feng and Shu Mountain. The lofty feeling of looking down on everyone. All kinds of foundations have to be built slowly. Lin Feng took out a pure white stone with floating cloud patterns on its surface. The stone was overflowing with spirit qi and contained an ethereal power concept, as if there were layers of space accumulating. This was the treasure that Lin Feng had obtained from the system, the heavenly soul cloudy stone. It was one of the top materials for refining weapons in the great heaven primal world, and could be called a priceless treasure. This item was extremely rare, produced above the 9 heavens clouds, its effects heaven-defying. It naturally contained the mysteries of space, as well as the effects of recovering one's vitality. As long as a little bit of it was added into the sacrificial refining magic tool, the magic tool would have the ability to travel through space. If the magic tool was damaged, it could even absorb the spiritual qi of heaven and earth to slowly repair the damage. For cultivators below the nascent soul stage, refining a magical artifact that contained the heavenly soul cloud stone was not only very practical, but it also allowed them to comprehend the mysteries of the void in advance before transcending the void thunder tribulation, which would increase their chances of transcending the void thunder tribulation and forming their nascent soul. Lin Feng's Taoist law, the 8 diagrams of the Great Way of Heaven, allowed cultivators to comprehend the power of space very early. At this moment, with the help of the heavenly soul cloudy stone, it would be even more helpful for their cultivation, and greatly increase their chances of reaching the nascent soul realm. Of course, the junior disciples were still far away from this point. On the contrary, Xiaoyan, Zhu Yi and the others could use it. The other second-generation disciples obtained the magic tools mostly because of the special effect of traveling through space, and they enjoyed the convenience of the magic tool's automatic repair after being damaged. Lin Feng flicked his finger, and a small piece of the heavenly soul cloudy stone broke and turned into a stream of light. Then Lin Feng kept adding other materials, fusing them with the heavenly soul cloudy stone, and refining them. With Lin Feng's current cultivation, if he didn't refine magic tools, he could almost make a magic tool with a wave of his hand. Soon, a faint cloud like white smoke floated in the air. The white cloud fell into Lin Feng's hand, and turned into a piece of white silk. This can be named the Cloud Qi Immortal Net. Lin Feng received the item, faintly smiling. The entire cloudstone of the heavenly soul shattered into a few larger pieces. He then took a bit of material from the top, separately refining it into a few sections of Cloud Qi Immortal Net. These pieces of Cloud Qi Immortal Net would be given by Lin Feng to Xiaoyan, Zhu Yi, and the other personal disciples, who hadn't reached the nascent soul realm yet. Lin Feng would keep one piece of the broken heavenly soul cloudy stone, and give the rest to Xiaoyan and the others. Then they would refine the Cloud Qi Immortal Net themselves and pass it on to their disciples. The disciples who hadn't reached the next level could also be rewarded based on their performance. The junior disciples' cultivation levels were still low, but when their cultivation levels gradually increased, the Cloud Qi Immortal Net would be useful. It could be used as a means of transportation and in battle. After transforming the refining method of the Cloud Qi Immortal Net into a few finished products, Lin Feng put the matter aside for the time being. And at this time, Zhu Yi's cultivation was also close to completion. The yin wind in his body suddenly stopped, and the violent yin wind turned back into the natural spiritual energy of heaven and earth. There was no transition time and process at all. Suddenly, there was a sense of matter of fact, as if the laws of heaven and earth should be like this. Everything couldn't be more natural. A golden elixir flashed with purple light. It was smooth and round, and there weren't any holes or blemishes on its surface. It was still perfect and flawless. Zhu Yi's golden elixir was half black and half white, but they blended together like water and milk. It seemed like they were one whole, but the black and white colors were clearly separated. Within the golden elixir, The two kinds of energy, light and dark, were incomparably balanced. They intertwined and promoted each other, as if they had unlimited growth potential. After a long time, the fluctuation of aura in Zhu Yi's body completely calmed down. He opened his eyes and looked at Lin Feng in front of him. Master. Lin Feng smiled and reached out to touch the space between Zhu Yi's eyebrows. It was a Taoist scripture that was transmitted into Zhu Yi's sea of consciousness. The second chapter of the Heavenly Virtue Scripture, the Four Symbols chapter, the Four Symbols Heaven Opening Scripture. This was the Taoist scripture that Lin Feng would impart to Zhu Yi and the other personal disciples after they advanced to the late stage of the Golden Elixir, and when they were preparing to form their nascent souls. Now that Zhu Yi had successfully broken through, Lin Feng naturally had to impart it to him. Zhu Yi's spirit was roused, and the magic power in his body naturally circulated according to the method of the Four Symbols Heaven Opening Scripture. The chaos shattered, and the changes of the earth, water, fire, and wind were performed. They settled down once again, and the world was born. Lin Feng silently watched him cultivate. He saw that a dense mist rose around Zhu Yi's body, surging and surging, and there were faint lights and shadows flashing in the mist. Looking closely, he saw that one of the light shadows became clearer and clearer. It was huge, with the body of an elk, the tail of a dragon, and the scales of a dragon. It had a gentle aura, and its body was covered with auspicious clouds. It had the appearance of a qilin. Other than this qilin light shadow, there were 3 other light shadows rising and falling in the dense mist, about to condense and take shape. Seeing this, a smile appeared on Lin Feng's face. Through the 8 trigram scripture of the Great Way of the Heavens, he already knew that his disciples would have their own comprehensions when cultivating the Taoist scripture. Especially the 4 of them, Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, Wang Lin, and Shi Tianhao, their comprehensions of the Taoist scripture would carry more personal marks. Perhaps this was also a major characteristic of the 4 of them? Now that Zhu Yi was cultivating the Four Symbols Heaven Opening Scripture, it was obvious that on the basis of the Taoist scripture, he had integrated his own understanding of the true meaning of the Great Way, which was ingenious. Xiaois are the 4 spirits, right? Lin Feng took a look at the 4 light shadows and nodded slightly. These light shadows did not mean that Zhu Yi had modified the Taoist scripture, but his personal understanding of the Four Symbols Heaven Opening Scripture, which was gradually derived and turned into actual external images. It was a kind of sustenance, a kind of condensation. It was similar to a primordial soul adept cultivating a top supernatural power to the realm of perfection, and condensing a supernatural power Dharma body. Zhu Yi had yet to form a primordial soul, so these light shadows were naturally not as strong as the supernatural power Dharma body. But their nature was similar. Of the 4 light shadows, only the qilin light shadow was completely formed, and the other 3 were still blurry. The light shadows sank into the dense light mist together, and the mist returned to Zhu Yi's body. After Zhu Yi stopped cultivating, he stood up and bowed to Lin Feng. Master. Lin Feng nodded and smiled. Xiaoyi, very good. You have a card up your sleeve, and good preparation. Ordinary people are afraid of the Yin-Wind tribulation, but you are walking on flat ground. Zhu Yi said, I still have to thank you for your guidance, Master. He paused and frowned slightly. Master, after studying your new Four Symbols Opening Heaven book, I have benefited a lot, but there are still some parts that I can't figure out. It's okay, replied Lin Feng. The more you can't figure out, the more it's worth it for you to carefully figure it out. Zhu Yi nodded repeatedly. That's right. Lin Feng said, next you should focus on nourishing it, and also prepare for your exam in the fall. Oh right, Xiaoyi. If that little girl Jun Zining brings people to join you for the exam this time, you can bring them back to the mountain. Zhu Yi raised his eyebrows slightly. Then, what if they don't come? Do I need to look for them? If they are in danger and ask you for help, there's no harm in helping them. Lin Feng said lightly. If not, there's no need to worry too much. Right now Lin Feng's mentality has already gradually changed. Towards talented people, he still wants to take them in, but it's not that he has to get them. In a mansion in the east of Tianjing City of the Great Zhou Dynasty. This was the mansion of the Great Zhou Dynasty's Crown Prince's junior master, Chen Yu. In a small courtyard in the backyard of the Chen Mansion, Two young girls were sitting face to face, staring at each other. The older one was dressed in green, about 12 or 13 years old. It was Jun Zining. At this moment, she was looking at the younger girl in red with a helpless expression. Xiao Wu, what should I say to you? The girl in red was Luo Qinggu. She said with a bitter smile. Sister Zining, I already know that I was wrong. What happened in the past was completely my family's own decision. It has nothing to do with Senior Lin and Xianmen Tianzong. Xiao Wu has long understood this. Luo Qinggu twisted the corner of her clothes and said softly, but because of this, how can Xiao Wu ask Senior Lin for help now? Senior Lin is a magnanimous person. Maybe he won't take such a small matter to heart, but Xiao Wu can't be so shameless. The little girl covered her face with both hands and cried out in distress. You took your anger out on him and still want to ask him for treatment. How can there be such a thick-skinned person? Jun Zining sighed. That's why I said, why are you so stubborn? You should turn around now and sincerely apologize. Senior Lin is magnanimous, he won't really care about it. How can a few simple words of apology be enough? Luo Qinggu clenched her small fist and shook it. I have to do something to apologize to Senior Lin. Jun Zining looked at Luo Qinggu suspiciously. You? What can you do? Sister Zining, don't look at me like that. Luo Qinggu's small eyes rolled and she smiled. I've discovered something. Chapter 498. Jun Zining looked at Luo Qinggu curiously. Found something? What did you find out? As soon as the words came out, Jun Zining suddenly froze and looked around. This is Chen Yu's mansion. Chen Yu is the crown prince's disciple in the Great Zhou dynasty. The crown prince it can't be? Luo Qinggu lowered her voice and said, I heard that it's because Senior Lin's disciple, Brother Zhu Yi, is close to the fourth prince of the Great Zhou dynasty. The crown prince is very dissatisfied. Jun Zining's expression became serious. Xiao Wu, how did you know? Luo Qinggu replied, he's Lord Chen's little grandson. Sister Zining, you've also met him 2 days ago. But before you came at a garden party, he and a few other descendants of the big clans drank too much and let loose, so they mentioned a few things. Someone questioned him. He said he heard it from his grandfather, but after he sobered up, he denied it. Jun Zining said in a low voice, I heard that although Chen Yu doesn't have much cultivation, he is the confidant of the great Zhou crown prince. He has always doted on his youngest grandson. Perhaps the news is somewhat credible, but logically speaking, he wouldn't reveal such an important matter to his descendants. Chen Yu has been in the limelight for many years. He shouldn't make such a low-level mistake. Could it be that he deliberately leaked false news to you through this method? Luo Qinggu tilted her head. It's possible. She and Luo Qi had contact with Lin Feng in Kunlun Mountain. The Luo family knew about it, so it was hard to guarantee that the news would not be leaked. Perhaps someone wanted to use this channel to deliberately leak the news to Lin Feng. It was hard to determine whether the news was true or not. But it's hard to say. Many times, secrets are leaked because of some seemingly bizarre things, but it's true. It's even more ridiculous than a ghost story in a novel. Jun Zining said like a little adult, don't rush. Let's be careful. Let's continue to investigate and figure out the situation before making a decision. Yes. Luo Qinggu nodded. Xiao Wu also thinks so. There's no smoke without fire. Since there's this kind of information, whether it's true or false, there's definitely someone with bad intentions behind the scenes. Jun Zining said, the person you're talking about, Brother Zhu Yi, will be coming to Tianjing City personally this autumn. When the time comes, we can go find him. He might be able to see through the truth of the matter. Luo Qinggu was a little lost in thought. She sensed that the heavenly accumulating dark soul pearl in her body was on the verge of shattering. Although it was on the verge of shattering, it was held in place by a wave of vitality and was not truly destroyed. That vitality was formed from the essence of Lin Feng's bipolar innate flower's petals. Uncle Lin. The red-clothed little lowly curled her legs in front of her chest and hugged her arms as she stared blankly at the sky. At the same time, the protagonist of the conversation between the two little girls, Lin Feng and his disciple, were in the mysterious Heaventime cave. Lin Feng smiled and said, You can study this thing. As he spoke, Lin Feng gave the Cloud Aura Immortal Net and the Heavenly Soul Cloudstone fragment to Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi took it and scanned it with his spiritual power. He immediately found that it was extraordinary and looked up at Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled without saying a word. This thing is really precious. Zhu Yi kept the Cloud Aura Immortal Net and the Heavenly Soul Cloudstone fragment together. Although it was not of much value to him at the moment, Zhu Yi understood after thinking for a while. After refining the Heavenly Soul Cloudstone into multiple Cloud Aura Immortal Nets, it would be of great use to his disciples. Subsequently, Zhu Yi went to study the Cloud Aura Immortal Net and the Heavenly Soul Cloudstone fragment, whereas Lin Feng focused on the other three people. The tiny Shi Tianhao was still inside the purple furnace. Silently, he refined his golden elixir and spiritual power. Various rare treasures were gathered inside the furnace, but it would take a long time to refine their powers. Shi Tianhao was very patient in his cultivation journey. He was not impatient at all as he refined and repaired his golden elixir bit by bit. At the same time, he succeeded one step at a time to prepare for the final transformation. Xiaoyan was the same. His spiritual power was pure enough, but he did not challenge the cold wind disaster blindly to advance to the later stage of the golden elixir. Throughout this period, he had been carefully adjusting the balance of the three essential fires inside him and comprehending the Wutong tree's power conception. Sharpening a knife would not delay the work of cutting firewood. If he made more preparations now, the cold wind disaster would be much smoother in the future. If the essential fires suddenly rebelled during the cold wind disaster, Xiaoyan would be in danger of dying because he would be trapped inside and outside, and wind and fire would intersect. Lin Feng could help him suppress the essential fires when they rebelled, but one could only work hard when one was going through the cold wind disaster because no one else could help. If something went wrong, perhaps Lin Feng could save his life, but Xiaoyan's vitality would definitely be greatly damaged. From Xiaoyan's personality, he has always been courageous and diligent. Now that he sees that the bottleneck is right in front of him, he still has to be patient and slowly plan for it. From a certain point of view, it can also be counted as a form of training. On the other hand, Yu Hongyan was ready. He had begun to form his core, and was going to break through to the golden elixir boundary. A dazzling purple light stood in Yu Hongyan's sea of qi at the moment. It was a black 9-story spiritual platform with a blazing flame on top. A pill cauldron could be seen on the spiritual platform. An infinite qi kept spewing out of it. The bottom of the pill cauldron was surrounded by an endless blazing fire, and numerous inscriptions were carved on it, which were the endless truths in the universe. Inside the pill cauldron, an illusory golden elixir kept bobbing up and down in the infinite qi, and a sea of spiritual qi kept gushing into it. Yu Hongyan, who had been cultivating with her eyes closed, suddenly opened her eyes. Flames flickered in her red eyes, and they were extremely dazzling. Her golden elixir was completely formed. It was no longer an illusory shadow, but a solid object. It turned into a dazzling golden elixir that flickered in a purple light and kept spinning. The golden elixir boundary was the glimpsing of immortality. Not only would her magic power increase greatly, but her lifespan would also increase to as long as 1,000 years. She would have more time to cultivate and explore the truths of the universe, as well as the great Tao of the world. The fifth disciple under Lin Feng's tutelage in the golden elixir period was born. Yu Hongyan stood up and bowed to Lin Feng. Master, nurture the golden elixir well. It is the beginning of the great Tao, and you still have a long way to go. Lin Feng chuckled and helped Yu Hongyan up. He looked at her from head to toe and said with a smile, "No matter who forms the golden elixir, Master will bestow a Yuanying realm artifact to each of you. You are no exception." Yu Hongyan's eyes lit up, and she seemed to have thought of something. Lin Feng smiled. "Oh, it seems like you have a goal? Tell me, which master's artifact do you fancy?" Yu Hongyan was a straightforward person. Although she was a little embarrassed by Lin Feng's teasing, she still said frankly, "Of course it is up to Master. But if Master asks what I want the most, it is still the golden crown of the ghost and god." When Lin Feng heard this, he immediately laughed and pointed at the red-haired girl's forehead. "You, Master really did not misjudge you. The golden crown of the ghost and god was one of the congratulatory gifts that the great Zhou dynasty's Mei Wulong had sent on behalf of Emperor Liang Pan during Lin Feng's opening ceremony in the Sand Continent city. It was a relatively good Yuanying realm artifact. This golden crown of the ghost and god was refined using a secret technique and contained mysterious power. It was most suitable for martial cultivators. The wearer would feel as if they were possessed by a ghost or god, and it would greatly strengthen the body's qi and blood. In fact, this was originally a Yuanying realm artifact that Lin Feng had prepared for Yu Hongyan. If it was someone else, they might feel awkward wearing an artifact from the great Zhou dynasty, which they had a blood feud with. But Yu Hongyan would not feel that way. This fierce girl would only feel that using the enemy's artifact to kill the enemy was more convenient and satisfying. Yu Hongyan was a dual cultivator of magic and martial arts, but overall, she was more inclined towards the direction of a martial cultivator. Especially her fighting style was more inclined towards close combat, and her fists hit flesh. Therefore, the golden crown of the ghost and god was a very suitable artifact for her. Of course, this artifact was given to Lin Feng by the great Zhou dynasty, and Lin Feng gave it to Yu Hongyan, who had a blood feud with the great Zhou dynasty. If this fell into the eyes of the great Zhou dynasty, it would be a bit unfair and a bit of a slap in the face. But this would only touch the nerves of the people in the great Zhou dynasty. At the level of Lin Feng and Emperor Liang Pan, this kind of thing, to put it bluntly, was just a bargaining chip in a game, and they were just playing with each other. In the future, as Xianmen Tianzong's strength continued to increase, and as his influence grew, the game with the great Zhou dynasty would also unfold in all aspects. Whether it was Zhu Yi or Yu Hongyan, they were all inextricably linked to the great Zhou dynasty, and they would have a long time to interact with each other. Therefore, Lin Feng did not care, and directly gave the golden crown of the ghost and god to Yu Hongyan, and helped her refine this Yuanying artifact. As long as a direct disciple succeeded in forming his or her gold core, he or she would be bestowed with a nascent soul realm magical item. In the eyes of the entire human cultivation world in the vast land of the Divine Land, such an act was extremely generous. It was enough to make most of the sects jealous. After Yu Hongyan formed the golden elixir, her understanding of Tao and the great Tao of heaven and earth were further improved. The Tao that she originally cultivated had many new experiences and questions, and she took this opportunity to ask Lin Feng. After Lin Feng answered them one by one, Yu Hongyan left to continue to study Tao. She had just formed her Azoth, and still needed to consolidate her realm. Lin Feng also gave her her share of the Cloud Qi Immortal Net, and the Heavenly Soul Cloudy Stone Fragment. Looking at Yu Hongyan's back as she left, Lin Feng's eyes flashed with a hint of imperceptible pity, and he sighed softly. What a pity! The quality of the golden elixir was generally divided into purple elixir, red elixir, green elixir, and yellow elixir. The purple elixir was the best, and the yellow elixir was the worst. Yu Hongyan forming her purple elixir was a cause for celebration in any other force. But Lin Feng still felt slightly regretful. If a vision could appear above the purple elixir, the quality would be a level higher. For example, Xiao Yan's golden elixir of true fire, Zhu Yi's golden elixir of light and darkness, Wang Lin's golden elixir of life and death, and Shi Tianhao's 9 orifices golden elixir, were all visions above the purple elixir. But now it seemed that not everyone could form the best of the best golden elixir. Yu Hongyan didn't succeed, but what about Yang Qing and the others? Although they were all Lin Feng's direct disciples, and the total value of the 4 talents had reached 30 or above, there was still a gap. Lin Feng grinned. Sure enough, not everyone has the ability to go against the heavens. Otherwise, the Son of Heaven wouldn't be the Son of Heaven. And, at this moment, Lin Feng's heart suddenly moved, and he turned to look in another direction. Yu Yan is finally preparing to cross the Yin Wen tribulation? Chapter 499. Xiao Yan sat cross-legged and continued to operate his Tao technique. Flames emerged from his body and flickered non-stop. The dark purple-blue flame was the netherworld evil flame. The pure gold that shone like a needle was the sun's true fire. The golden flame that flashed red and blue was the Nanmingli fire. The flames of the three great true fires alternated on Xiao Yan's body, going round and round. Due to the chaos caused by the true fire in his body, he had been quietly cultivating these past few days, making up for the flaw of having an unstable foundation that he had lost while advancing valiantly. It was like a new wine that had been aged. The wine fragrance was no longer strong, but it was more mellow and thick. To Xiao Yan, this is actually also a hard-to-come-by training, allowing him to pass through the Yin tribulation without mishap at this moment. With the three true fires quiet and not causing trouble, Xiao Yan successfully passed the tribulation and advanced to the late stage of the golden elixir realm, just like Zhu Yi. Behind Xiao Yan, the flame wings spread out again, but it was no longer the original two wings, one gold and one purple. There were a total of 6 flame wings, divided into 3 pairs and spread out symmetrically. The pair of flame wings on his shoulder was formed by the purple-blue netherworld evil flame. The pair of pure gold flame wings on both sides of his back was formed by the sun's true fire. Then below his waist, the third pair of flame wings spread out. The golden flame and the red and blue light were formed by the Nanmingli fire. A sense of violent power spread out, giving people an incomparably valiant and deterrent force that far exceeded the current realm. After a long time, Xiao Yan finished the preliminary cultivation. He opened his eyes and said with a happy smile, "Master, I succeeded." Lin Feng also nodded. Very good, the previous hard work was not in vain. Under the contrast of the 6 flame wings, Xiao Yan's body was like a god. His face revealed a trace of a gratified smile. A delightful feeling surged unceasingly in his chest, and he could not help but let out a long howl towards the sky. Like a tiger roaring in the forest, his laughter shook the sky and pierced through the clouds. The space within the mysterious heaven-time light paradise seemed to become even brighter. Other than Shi Tianhao, who was still cultivating in the purple great furnace, Zhu Yi and Yu Hongyan, who were cultivating in the distance, looked over and said together, "Congratulations, eldest senior brother." The two of them revealed smiles on their faces. Ever since they encountered the calamity of the true fire, Xiao Yan had become very different from what they remembered. Although he was still bold and unrestrained, his body carried a heavy aura of lethargy. He had buried his sharpness deep within his heart, always having misgivings. He was like a tiger that had fallen to the plains, no longer majestic. And now, this ferocious tiger had finally broken free from its cage and returned to its own territory, its own world, and once again became the proud king of the forest. This was the first disciple of Xianmen Tianzong in their memories. He was resolute, unyielding, brave, and fearless. When the sect was provoked and threatened, he was always the first one to stand up. Xiao Yan had successfully advanced to the late stage of the golden elixir, and Lin Feng had also imparted the Tao art of the 4 symbols heaven-opening scripture to him. Lin Feng raised his eyes and looked at the purple great furnace that was held in the palm of the great Sun Emperor. And in this case, only tiny tot is left. Shi Tianhao had absorbed the essence of various treasures to transform the golden elixir. This was a very long process, but as long as he was on the right track, he just had to wait patiently. When Lin Feng came out of the mysterious heaven-time light paradise, he would also split a part of his attention to look after Shi Tianhao. Therefore, he was not worried that there would be any mistakes. After Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and Yu Hongyan cultivated for a period of time, they also returned to their respective cave abodes. There, they still had their inner chamber disciples to teach. At the same time, the 3 of them obtained the heavenly soul cloudstone fragment and the refining method of the cloud chi celestial net. This time, Xiao Yan could finally hold his head up high. Not only had he finally advanced to the late stage of the golden elixir and gotten rid of the pain caused by the true fire, he was also the most proficient in refining the cloud chi celestial net. The speed was the fastest, and the quality was the best. Lin Feng saw everything and couldn't help but shake his head and laugh. To be fair, among everyone, Xiaoyi's talent in refining weapons is the highest. However, Xiaoyan has a cheating device. After advancing to the late stage of the golden elixir, Xiao Yan could freely control the 3 great true fires in his body. Not just the Nether Evil Emperor and Sun True Fire, but also the Nanmingli fire that he had obtained later on. Among the 7 great true fires in the world, The Nanmingli fire was the most suitable true fire for refining weapons and alchemy. Using this fire to refine elixirs, or to refine magic weapons would yield twice the result with half the effort. Not only could it speed up the refining process, but it could also improve the quality of the finished product. Its effect was extremely heaven-defying. Xiaoyan could now finally completely control the Nanmingli fire. Not only did it make his strength soar, but it also made great progress in alchemy and refining weapons. During this time, Lin Feng had collected some medicinal materials. The materials on hand were complete, so he simply gave the pill formulas of the Heaven Spirit Replenishing Pill and the Marrow Cleansing Pill, as well as the Spirit Ascending Grass, the Spirit Spring Marrow Cleansing Grass, and other medicinal materials to Xiaoyan. After obtaining the Nanmingli fire, Xiaoyan couldn't help but feel excited. After understanding the use of the two kinds of elixirs, he immediately ran into the pill room and fiddled with the heaven-returning gold pavilion. Not much time had passed in the outside world, but in the mysterious sky timeless light cave, time had passed quickly. Lin Feng soon felt that Shi Tianhao was about to finish his cultivation and begin to prepare for the last hurdle, to cross the Yin Wind tribulation and achieve the golden elixir leakless. In the purple chi furnace, a large amount of Kuan Peng true blood had been reduced by half, and the heaven-repairing vine on the mouth of the furnace had also disappeared. An innumerable amount of spiritual essence was absorbed into Shi Tianhao's body, and the golden elixir in his body was shining brightly. The entire golden elixir was covered with colorful rays of light, turning into a colorful ball of light. On this colorful ball of light, there were 9 dazzling purple gold light spots that were constantly flashing. The heavenly gate above Shi Tianhao's head blew down, and the Yin Wind tribulation officially began. In the face of the terrifying Yin Wind, Shi Tianhao was not in a hurry and calmly dealt with it. Not only was he not afraid, but he also used the Yin Wind tribulation to help his golden elixir complete the final transformation. After a long time, the violent Yin Wind suddenly stopped, and then endless light erupted from Shi Tianhao's body. First, it was his golden elixir, and then his whole body was emitting a dazzling light. The remaining Kuan Peng true blood around his body was constantly shaking, and at this moment, it was continuously absorbed into Shi Tianhao's body. His body seemed to have become a huge abyss, greedily devouring all the spiritual essence and treasures in the surroundings. The void was shaking, and only the purple furnace formed by Lin Feng's magic power remained stable. Rays of light shot out from the mouth of the furnace, shooting straight into the sky. In the light, there were endless symbols and patterns flashing densely. In the furnace, it was as if a Khanate supremacy was awakening, swallowing everything, and only he was supreme. The light flooded the world. Shi Tianhao's body slowly rose from the furnace. His skin was perfect and flawless, and the surface of his body was engraved with countless characters and runes. In the next moment, these characters and runes were absorbed into his body along with the endless light. In his body, there was a flawless golden elixir that was flickering with violet light, and it was constantly spinning as it absorbed the divine light. The 9 orifices on the golden elixir had already disappeared, and the golden elixir had reached perfection. Although Shi Tianhao's golden elixir wasn't absorbing spiritual energy like before, it was still extremely agile. The golden elixir was like a transparent glass, and there was a dazzling divine light circulating within the golden elixir. The divine light seemed to contain all things, including the profundities of the ancient times. As the divine light circulated, Shi Tianhao's golden elixir was also absorbing spiritual energy. The absorption of spiritual energy was even more terrifying than when he was in the 9th orifice of the Xiantian realm. Furthermore, it was extremely smooth, and there was no need for him to refine it. As the divine light revolved, the spiritual energy would be converted into spiritual energy. When Lin Feng saw all of this, he smiled. It's a success. It's truly better than the 9 orifice golden elixir. Aside from improving the 9 orifice golden elixir, there's something more miraculous about it. But it's not obvious right now. I'm afraid that he will only reveal his true potential after he forms his nascent soul. The purple energy furnace dissipated and Shi Tianhao stood on the palm of the great Sun Yin Emperor. He smiled and looked into the sky. Master! Well done. Lin Feng's silhouette appeared in the sky, and he nodded his head in gratification. As he grew older, Shi Tianhao's big eyes didn't lose their liveliness. Instead, they became even more spirited. His eyeballs rolled around and he smiled. Then, Master, if I do well, will there be a reward? Lin Feng appeared before him and flicked Lin Feng's forehead. You won't be lacking after you form your nascent soul. Brat, you still have a long way to go. Shi Tianhao giggled, and the Tao formula of the 4 divisions heaven opening book appeared in his mind. He immediately started to cultivate it seriously. Seeing the cultivation of his disciples improve, Lin Feng was also happy. The only thing that worried him was Wang Lin, who was lost in the void battlefield. The war god clone was still searching for him in the void battlefield. Although he didn't come into contact with him, he had heard news about Wang Lin from other people. But there was still no substantial progress. Luckily, Wang Lin's life lamp was not extinguished. Although there was a period when the lamp became extremely weak, as if it could be extinguished at any time, which made Lin Feng's heart jump, Wang Lin still managed to survive. After a period of time, the lamp became bright again. This meant that Wang Lin had survived a near-death crisis. In the following days, Lin Feng didn't go out. He cultivated on Yujing Mountain and refined his artifact at the same time. His disciples, such as Xiao Yan and the others, also cultivated, studied, and honed their spells. Those who had disciples also taught them carefully. Wang Lin's mortal forest residence expanded quite a bit. It was no longer a few simple wooden houses. After an expansion, Wang Lin's parents and some of the people who were close to him lived there. It was not until now that they had ascended Yujing Mountain and witnessed all the wondrous sights on Yujing Mountain that they finally understood just how powerful Wang Lin's background was. He had always kept a low profile in his hometown and was willing to live an ordinary life. Before this, even if they were on friendly terms with Wang Lin, they still treated Wang Lin as a junior. But at this moment, these thoughts had completely vanished without a trace. They truly understood that in essence, Wang Lin was someone from a completely different world from them. Chapter 500. Living in Mortal Forest residence and looking at the main body of Yujing Mountain in the distance, even Wang Lin's parents felt as if a lifetime had passed. A purple-clothed girl came to their side and offered them fragrant tea. She smiled and said, "This is the spiritual tea produced by the medicinal valley on the mountain. It can calm the nerves and nourish the soul, and prolong life. Please enjoy." The Wang family's parents repeatedly said that they didn't dare to accept it. They had seen with their own eyes how this seemingly weak purple-clothed girl could walk with the wind under her feet. This purple-clothed girl was naturally Li Xingfei. She had been studying Tao in Xianmen Tianzong for more than a year, and her qi cultivation had reached a small level. Before she entered the sect, she was not the daughter of an ordinary family. After entering the sect, she had been living on Yujing Mountain, nourishing herself with spiritual qi. Her temperament and appearance became more and more outstanding, and no one dared to underestimate her. Li Xingfei smiled and said, "Master is not here, so Xingfan should serve you too. If you need anything, please let me know." Wang Lin's father hesitated for a moment before asking, "Miss, may I ask, my son Wang Lin, what level has he reached in his cultivation?" Li Xingfei replied politely, "Xingfan, as your disciple, does not dare to speculate about Master's cultivation. However, I can be sure that Master has formed the golden elixir and achieved immortality. He can live for 1,000 years, and flying in the sky and controlling thunder and fire is nothing to him." The Wang family's parents' jaws dropped. Wang Lin had never displayed his cultivation in front of his parents. He lived at home to enjoy the happiness of his family, and he also tried to figure out the plain and simple Tao concept. Therefore, when he returned to his hometown, he gave people the feeling that he was just like an ordinary mortal. If it was not for the preferential treatment of the Great Qin dynasty, the people in Wang Lin's hometown would find it hard to believe that the skinny youth of the past had really succeeded in his cultivation. In the battle before they parted, the level was too high for ordinary people. In an instant, sand and stones flew everywhere, and the earth cracked. To Wang Lin and the others, it was a very long time, but to mortals it was only the blink of an eye. Before the Wang family could even react, they were sucked into the spatial rift. After that, Yangqing took the jade talisman and put it away. They did not understand what was happening in the outside world, and could only wait anxiously. When they saw the light of day again, they were already on Mount Yujing. After sitting with the old couple for a while, Li Xingfei said her goodbyes and left. She was very polite. When she left the house and went to the courtyard, she didn't use her movement technique. Only when she was out of the small courtyard did she use her movement technique, and quickly flew far away like a bird. The other members of the Wang clan looked at Li Xingfei with complicated gazes. By this point, they all knew that this beautiful girl, who seemed like a heavenly daughter, was actually Wang Lin's apprentice. In the house, Wang Lin's mother kept sighing. Such a beautiful girl. I was thinking that if she could be my son's wife, it would really be a blessing from 8 generations of ancestors. Who knew that this would be the result? This is really a blessing from 80 generations, 800 generations. In front of her, Wang Lin's father patted her and said, "Now I just hope that the kid can come back quickly." In order to prevent them from worrying, Yangqing didn't dare to tell them the truth about Wang Lin being lost in the void battlefield. She could only say that Wang Lin was chasing after the enemy to take revenge for the dead. Wang Lin's mother nodded repeatedly. Yes, yes, I don't hope for anything else. I just hope that my son can come back safely." When Li Xingfei left the Wang clan's residence, she didn't return to her wooden house. Instead, she temporarily left Fanlin residence and went to Zhu Yi's Qiantian palace. When Wang Lin wasn't on the mountain, whenever Li Xingfei had any questions in her cultivation, she would ask Zhu Yi, Xiao Yan, and the others. Zhu Yi and the others wouldn't hide anything, and would try their best to answer her questions. Looking back at Fanlin residence, Li Xingfei sighed softly. Her gaze was a little complicated. Ever since she became Wang Lin's apprentice, other than teaching her at the very beginning, her master had always left the mountain and she hadn't seen him in half a year. Her cultivation now was almost no different from when she became Zhu Yi's apprentice. However, the atmosphere in Xianmen Tianzong was very good. The 6 disciples under Lin Feng got along well with each other. Although there were small circles among the younger disciples, on the whole, it was very good. Some of the guests on the mountain were also very friendly after interacting with them. Of course, there were exceptions. Li Xingfei frowned slightly. She looked at the person who was walking towards her from afar. It was a young man who wasn't much older than her. He was tanned and thin, very tall. His facial features were handsome, and his eyes were bright and full of expression. This person looked to be around 17 years old, but his expression was rigid and meticulous, making him look rather mature. Li Xingfei knew that his name was Li Yuanfang. He wasn't a member of Xianmen Tianzong but a guest here. However, she didn't have a good impression of this person. She, Su Yinsheng, Ing Luoza, and the others had once gathered together to discuss Tao. This Li Yuanfang happened to pass by and overheard their discussion. He endured it and didn't say anything, but his eyebrows furrowed unabashedly. Although Li Yuanfang hadn't officially learned the 8 trigram scripture of the Great Way of Heaven, he was at least at the foundation establishment stage. Occasionally he would receive pointers from Lin Feng, so he could still see the mistakes in Li Xingfei and the others' understanding of Tao, which were still at the middle and lower levels of qi cultivation. The little fatty under Xiao Yan, Yan Wuwei, noticed Li Yuanfang's expression and raised his doubts in dissatisfaction. After a moment of silence, Li Yuanfang immediately pointed out the omissions in their discussion. After Li Xingfei and the others thought about it seriously, they also found the problem. However, when the disciples of their own sect were discussing, an outsider came to criticize them. Ing Luoza and the little fatty under Xiao Yan were quite dissatisfied. Even though Li Yuanfang was at the foundation establishment stage, they still argued with Li Yuanfang. The scriptures they cited were all from the simplified version of the Taoist canon. Although it was a simplified version, many of the principles were of the same origin. Li Yuanfang's Tao came from patriarchy too, and he used formations to enter the Tao. Although it was also very profound and extensive, it was still lacking compared to what Ing Luoza and the others had learned. However, his cultivation was higher after all, and his comprehension was also stronger. In the process of debating with Ing Luoza and the others, his understanding of Tao improved. In the end, Su Yinsheng, Li Xingfei, and the others all joined the battle, but they were all defeated. Later on, Zhu Yi was alerted. After Zhu Yi arrived, he convinced Li Yuanfang with just a few words about Tao. When they saw Li Yuanfang sincerely thanking Zhu Yi for his guidance, Li Xingfei and the others were speechless for a moment. Only then did they understand that Li Yuanfang wasn't trying to provoke them on purpose. It was just that it was in his nature. He didn't care about the sand in his eyes, and he was completely unreasonable. Li Xingfei was a gentle and polite person. He was careful with his words and actions, and knew when to advance and when to retreat. When it came to people like Li Yuanfang, he naturally kept a respectful distance from them. When they met face to face, Li Xingfei still bowed with a normal expression. Fellow Taoist Li. When Li Yuanfang saw this, he didn't slight the other party just because he was a qi condensation cultivator. He stopped and said seriously, "Hello." After bidding farewell to Li Yuanfang, Li Xingfei watched curiously as Li Yuanfang walked in the direction of the mysterious heaven treasure tree at the top of Yujing Mountain. Did the patriarch summon him? Li Xingfei's guess was right. Li Yuanfang was indeed going to meet Lin Feng. Lin Feng had seen him a few times before, and each time, he taught him a little about the formation variations of the yin and yang life and death formation. Every once in a while, he would also test him. So much so that now, there was no need for Lin Feng to call him. When the time came, Li Yuanfang would automatically report to him and accept Lin Feng's test. Apart from the yin and yang life and death formation, Lin Feng would also give Li Yuanfang pointers on other Dao techniques. Just like how Li Yuanfang could see the problems in Li Xingfei and the others' cultivation of Dao techniques, it was even easier for Lin Feng to give him pointers. Especially now that Lin Feng had achieved the primordial divinity, the heavenly virtue scripture was all-encompassing, and he could easily figure out the Dao techniques of Patriarch He Tu's lineage. Not to mention Li Yuanfang, even Patriarch He Tu would be greatly enlightened by just a few words from Lin Feng, allowing him to comprehend the true essence of Dao techniques that he had never understood before. In this subtle way, Lin Feng made Li Yuanfang more and more accustomed to living on Yujing Mountain. However, Li Yuanfang's character made it impossible for him to be boiled like a frog in warm water by Lin Feng. He didn't suspect or speculate about Lin Feng, but simply felt that he would feel guilty if he didn't give a clear explanation for constantly receiving Lin Feng's kindness and guidance. So when he saw Lin Feng this time, Li Yuanfang was the first to bow respectfully. These days I'm indebted to seniors' treatment and guidance, and I'm extremely grateful. I should have left the mountain as soon as possible, but I coveted senior's formation and shamelessly stayed on the mountain again and again. I've really let senior down. I feel guilty, please punish me, senior. I'll gladly endure any punishment. His expression was extremely solemn, and his eyes were calm and even a little relaxed, as if the shackles in his heart had been removed. Seeing this, Lin Feng faintly smiled, waving his hand. No need to be so courteous. You're a rare talent, so I'm just giving you a few pointers. To me it's a small matter, but to you it can barely be counted as an opportunity. How you walk the path of cultivation in the future, and how far you can ultimately walk, will still depend on yourself. Li Yuanfang opened his mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end he didn't make a sound. A dazed and confused expression appeared on his face that was always firm and calm. Lin Feng said indifferently, "Here with me. You might as well carefully consider the path you want to walk in the future." Slowly Li Yuanfang nodded his head. Lin Feng looked at him, his mind suddenly slightly moving, and a sound transmission crystal in his hand shattered. The other side of the communication was the Celeritas Sword Sect's Sect Master, Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light. "Sect Master Lin, I've brought along my sect's disciple Tao Yaoyao to specially pay a visit." Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light's voice was calm and without ripples. After hearing this, Lin Feng silently said, "You're most welcome." His divine sense for a moment, and with a light clap of his hands, a crack split open in the void. Boundless purple qi flowed into the crack, passing through the void and arriving at the vast thousand world. At this moment, on a mountain peak in the Kunlun mountain range, two people stood. One was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s. His face was like jade, and his black hair was like a waterfall. On both sides of his temples, 2 strands of snow-white hair hung down, and his eyes were filled with majesty. Behind him stood a white-clothed woman. She was extremely beautiful, and her facial features were picturesque, but she had an extremely strong aggressiveness. Although she was incomparably ostentatious, she did not appear domineering. It was just that her eyes revealed a very obvious desire to fight. It was Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light and Tao Yaoyao. The void split open in front of them, and boundless purple chi paved a path in front of them. Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light took the lead, and Tao Yaoyao followed closely behind. Through the purple chi path, the two arrived at Yujing Mountain together. Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light's pupils slightly contracted, and he saw a young man dressed in purple with black clothes standing on the mountain peak. The young man calmly cupped his fists towards him. Xianmen Tianzong Xiaoyan, I welcome Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light on behalf of my master. Chapter 501. The reason why Swordsman Flowing Light brought Tao Yaoyao to visit was very simple. It was naturally because of the heaven-mending vine in Lin Feng's hands. Tao Yaoyao was the most talented descendant of the Celeritas sword sect in the last 1,000 years. She was accepted by Swordsman Flowing Light as a personal disciple, and has always been carefully nurtured. Hundreds of years ago, Tao Yaoyao had already reached the late stage of the golden elixir, and was a rising star who became famous in the entire divine land. Not only did her cultivation level rise rapidly, she was also extremely ferocious in actual combat. But it was also because Tao Yaoyao was a competitive person that in the process of fighting with a Yuanying stage-old monster, although she succeeded in surpassing realms and killing her opponent, Tao Yaoyao herself also paid a heavy price. Huge cracks appeared on the golden elixir, almost directly shattering. From then on, Tao Yaoyao could only be forced to return to the mountain to recuperate. Because of the cracks on the golden elixir, the originally imminent nascent soul formation also became a bubble. In the following hundreds of years, Tao Yaoyao was always stuck at the late stage of the golden elixir, wasting most of her good time. In reality, before the incident, many people of the Celeritas sword sect placed their hopes on Tao Yaoyao for another primordial spirit expert to appear in the sect. Even at that time she was only in the golden elixir period. Her potential was very high and her future was very far. A year ago, Tao Yaoyao followed Swordsman Flowing Light to the Desolate Sea Assembly, participating with a group of cultivators who could be considered her juniors in terms of age, all in order to be able to enter the ancient Desolate Sea world and obtain the heaven-mending vine, a spiritual item that can only be produced in the ancient Desolate Sea world. The heaven-mending vine has a heaven-defying miraculous effect in repairing damage. Tao Yaoyao was originally determined to get it, but in the end it fell into the hands of Lin Feng's Xianmen Tianzong. Even if Swordsman Flowing Light wanted to personally rob Lin Feng, it would be impossible. Helplessly he could only pay a visit. At that time, Lin Feng promised that 1 year after the Desolate Sea Assembly, Swordsman Flowing Light could send Tao Yaoyao to personally ask for the medicine. Now that a year had passed, Tao Yaoyao had arrived on time. However, for some unknown reason, Sword Venerable Flowing Light had also come along. This was different from back then when Lin Feng accompanied Xiao Yan to ascend the cloud peak. Lin Feng was clearly supporting his eldest disciple, while this time the Celeritas sword sect had something to ask of him, so their attitude naturally had to be humble. Xiao Yan already understood what had happened here. So, although he found it strange why Sword Venerate Flowing Light would personally make a trip here, he was well-mannered, neither servile nor overbearing as he welcomed Sword Venerate Flowing Light and his disciple. Venerable Lightflow stared at Xiao Yan and slowly nodded. Since he had already reached the primordial spirit realm, he normally would not pay attention to a late-stage golden elixir cultivator. In his thousands of years of life, he had seen too many geniuses rise to prominence, and also seen too many geniuses fall prematurely. Ordinary people would not make him pay attention. But Xiao Yan was definitely an exception. Over a year ago, it was Xiao Yan who ascended the cloud-traversing peak. With his early-stage golden elixir cultivation, he fought against the early-stage Yuanying crown prince Shi Chongyun of the Great Qin dynasty. Afterwards, he completed the bet with Celeritas sword sect disciple Morong Yanran. In front of all the spectators, he crossed the fire tribulation on the spot after his victory, and advanced to the mid-stage golden elixir, greatly losing the face of the Celeritas sword sect. Meeting again today, Sword Venerable Lightflow could tell with a glance that Xiao Yan's cultivation had already soared to late-stage golden elixir. Right now only a little over a year had passed since that day on the cloud-traversing peak. With Sword Venerable Lightflow's eyesight, he could naturally tell that although Xiao Yan had cultivated in the time acceleration grotto heaven, his time was extremely limited. To be able to achieve such a huge improvement in such a short time, even a primordial spirit realm cultivator like him would have to raise his eyebrows. Moreover, Sword Venerable Lightflow could clearly feel that Xiao Yan's body contained an extremely terrifying power. The increase in true combat power was even greater than the increase in cultivation level. Tao Yaoyao was also constantly sizing up Xiao Yan. A year ago on the cloud-traversing peak, she was in closed-door training and did not meet up with Xiao Yan. Afterwards, she felt rather regretful. Although she was a woman, she had a strong and aggressive personality. Before the Desolate Sea Assembly, she had always wanted to compete with Xiao Yan. She had felt that it was a pity that Xiao Yan did not participate in the Desolate Sea Assembly. However, after witnessing the battle between Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao, her heart trembled. Through Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao, she could roughly estimate Xiao Yan's strength. At that time, if her golden elixir did not have any problems, she might still have a fighting chance. However, with the golden elixir cracked, she most likely would not be a match for him. Facing the current Xiao Yan, she felt immense pressure. Her intuition told her that even if she was in her peak state, she would still not be a match for Xiao Yan. In fact, even if she successfully formed her nascent soul and advanced to the Yuanying stage, she might not have much chance of winning. Xiao Yan brought Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light and Tao Yaoyao to his sect's all-heaven great hall. After entering the hall, he saw Lin Feng silently sitting on the main seat. Seeing that Xiao Yan had brought people in, Lin Feng stood up from his seat and smiled. Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light, my greetings. Please forgive me for not welcoming you earlier. Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light stared at Lin Feng for a while and said calmly, Celestial Gate Master, you are too polite. It is us, Master and Disciple, who have disturbed you. Tao Yaoyao also came up and bowed to Lin Feng. Although she had always been fearless, she knew that Lin Feng was someone that even her master had to be careful when dealing with. Ever since Lin Feng broke the 6 Meridian Heaven Immortal Sword formation and killed the Celestial Heaven Sword Monarch, the entire Divine Land had already tacitly acknowledged Lin Feng's status as a big shot. Lin Feng didn't beat around the bush. After glancing at Tao Yaoyao, he said to Xiao Yan, bring this little friend to the medicinal valley to harvest a piece of heaven-mending vine. Xiao Yan bowed. Disciple obeys. He turned to Tao Yaoyao and said, fellow Taoist Tao, please follow me. Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light nodded slightly at Tao Yaoyao. Tao Yaoyao bowed to Lin Feng again and thanked him. Junior thanks Celestial Gate Master for your great kindness. The two left the all-heaven great hall together and walked towards the medicinal valley. Xiao Yan sent a voice transmission to Yang Qing in the Nirvana Paradise. Yang Qing was the supervisor of the medicinal valley. Although he said that Xiao Yan didn't need to inform him when he entered the valley to harvest herbs, Xiao Yan would usually inform him every time. Eldest senior brother, just bring that fellow Taoist Tao here. I'm in the medicinal valley right now. Receiving Yang Qing's reply, Xiao Yan shrugged his shoulders. Crossing his arms behind his head, he walked towards the medicinal valley unhurriedly. Tao Yaoyao followed behind him. Her expression was also very relaxed. She looked around and looked at every grass and tree on the peak of Jade Capital Mountain with interest, praising endlessly from her mouth. They entered the entrance of the medicinal valley and passed through the mountain rocks. They came into the valley and saw a fertile medicinal field filled with all kinds of medicinal herbs and spirit herbs. Wisps of white mist gushed out from many of the spirit herbs and gradually condensed into white baby shadows in the air. These baby shadows revolved around Jihao's body, running around happily and emitting a strong medicinal aura. Tao Yaoyao's eyes flashed. So many medicinal herbs have become spirits? The Celeritas sword sect also has their own medicinal field. After many years of accumulation, the medicinal herbs that have become spirits are similarly not few. But Xianmen Tianzong has only been established for a short period of time. Yet they also have such a large-scale and high-quality medicinal field. Tao Yaoyao cannot help but look at them in a new light. She is a person with good eyesight and naturally knows that the more unremarkable and more basic and ordinary things are, the more they can often reflect the foundation of a sect. Tao Yaoyao's gaze fell into Xiaoyan's eyes. Even though he does not know what Tao Yaoyao is thinking, he can still roughly guess. He could not help but laugh in his heart. This is only the medicinal field under normal conditions. If the lucky heaven spirit soil is spread out, it would be even stronger. There are already 2 people in the medicinal field. One is a youth in purple with a gentle appearance. Tao Yaoyao once saw him at the Desolate Sea Assembly and recognized him as Xiao Yan's 5th junior brother Yongqing. He is also the person that Xiao Yan contacted just now. As for the other youth with a dark and skinny appearance, she has no impression of him at all. When Xiao Yan saw him, he smiled and said, "Yo Yuanfang, you are here too?" The dark, skinny, and tall youth is Li Yuanfang. After he returned from Lin Feng's place, he coincidentally met Yongqing. The 2 of them chatted about Dao techniques. As they chatted, they came to the medicinal valley together. Yongqing had medicinal herbs to take care of, so Li Yuanfang patiently waited at the side. He quietly watched as Yongqing took care of each stalk of spirit grass, watching with relish. To him, this kind of meticulous matter was very interesting. Compared to the complete rigor of formations, plants are full of life, and Li Yuanfang also felt that it is very interesting. Seeing that Xiao Yan and Tao Yaoyao came together, Li Yuanfang bowed seriously. "Elder Xiao." Xiao Yan is already used to his strict manner. After greeting him, he immediately said to Yongqing, "5th junior brother, I brought this fellow Taoist Tao here. Under Master's orders, we are here to cut off a section of the heaven-mending vine. It is naturally the best that you are here. You are more skilled than I am, so you can handle it." Yongqing smiled and nodded. He took the lead and walked to where the heaven-mending vine was. The other 3 followed behind him. As they walked, Yongqing and Li Yuanfang continued to exchange their views on Dao techniques. However, in front of Tao Yaoyao, Yongqing used the method of using transcendence energy to transmit his voice. Thus, Li Yuanfang used the same method as him. Lin Feng had once instructed the disciples that they do not need to avoid Li Yuanfang when discussing Dao techniques. However, Tao Yaoyao naturally could not enjoy the same treatment. As the 4 of them walked forward, Tao Yaoyao looked at Li Yuanfang curiously. Based on his speech and behavior, he did not seem like someone from Xianmen Tianzong. However, he could still move around in a core area like the Medicine Valley. Moreover, he did not avoid taking a spirit medicine like the heaven-mending vine. When they arrived, they saw a dark green vine attached to the mountain rock. It was emerald green in color, and was overflowing with spirit qi. Tao Yaoyao has always been a big-hearted person, but when she saw this vine, her breathing could not help but pause. This was the heaven-mending vine that she dreamed of. She had waited hundreds of years for the ancient desolate sea world to open, but in the end she still missed it. "Fellow Taoist Tao, please wait a moment." Yongqing walked forward and started to use his magic power to cut the vine. His movements were slow and very gentle. Dark green lunar true water appeared at the same time and nourished the vine. Yongqing's method did not harm the vitality of the spirit medicine, but it could also successfully harvest the spirit medicine. However, it was slower and needed some time. Tao Yaoyao could naturally wait. Xiao Yan had always been an impatient person, but he did not care about such a short period of time. On the contrary, Li Yuanfang, who was silently standing at the side, counted the time with his fingers and nodded at Xiao Yan and the other 2. "My apologies, I will take my leave." After he cupped his fists, he turned and left without stopping. Xiao Yan and Yongqing also looked as if they were used to it. Tao Yaoyao looked strangely at the leaving Li Yuanfang. This fellow Taoist, what is he doing? Xiao Yan and Yongqing looked at each other, and shook their heads and laughed. Xiao Yan smiled but did not say anything. Yongqing smiled and explained, "His time is up." Chapter 502. After hearing Xiao Yan and Yongqing's words, Tao Yaoyao became even more puzzled. Time's up? What time's up? Xiaoyan still smiled and didn't speak. After hesitating for a bit, Yangqing simply explained. Yuan Fanghe, the training time he sets for himself every day is all planned out. At the same time, he is also a very punctual person. Tao Yaoyao was stunned and could not help but laugh. Although Li Yuanfang didn't explain in detail, she still understood. It turned out that it was already time for Li Yuanfang to train according to the plan. This person obviously had some obsessive-compulsive disorder. When the time was up, he must act according to the original plan. Tao Yaoyao looked at Li Yuanfang with a smile. What an interesting person. Interesting. After a moment, Yangqing successfully cut off a piece of heaven-mending vine. The dark green heaven-mending vine emitted a mysterious spiritual energy fluctuation. After Yangqing handed the vine to Xiaoyan immediately brought Tao Yaoyao out of the medicine valley and returned to the All Heavens Hall. On the way, Tao Yaoyao, who was behind Xiaoyan, suddenly said, Fellow Taoist Xiao, I have a presumptuous request. I hope you will agree. Xiaoyan turned around and asked casually, What is it? Tao Yaoyao's expression was still very relaxed, but her gaze was extremely solemn. Slowly she said, I have long heard that fellow Taoist Xiao is fierce in fights. Even among the disciples of the same generation in Xianmen Tianzong, you are second to none. Xiaoyan raised his eyebrows and said indifferently, Among the disciples under my master, I am the head, but that is only because I entered the sect earlier. My fellow disciples are all astonishingly talented. I never belittle myself, but I also do not dare to falsely claim to be second to none. Speaking up to this point, Xiaoyan suddenly changed the topic. However, among the cultivators of the same realm, only our fellow disciples can defeat the disciples of Xianmen's sect. These overbearing and domineering words came out of Xiaoyan's mouth in an extremely calm tone, without the slightest bit of arrogance or complacency, as if he was stating a universally acknowledged general knowledge. Tao Yaoyao stared at Xiaoyan for a moment, and a smile gradually blossomed on her face. She didn't comment on Xiaoyan's words and only said with a faint smile, Tao Yaoyao is untalented, so I would like to ask for fellow Zhao's guidance. Even though Tao Yaoyao had a feeling that she would most likely lose the battle against Xiaoyan, she still took the initiative to challenge him. Moreover, he issued a challenge to Xiaoyan at the top of Yujing Mountain in Xianmen Tianzong. This was because this had always been her wish. She wanted to fight against Xiaoyan. If she retreated in the end and didn't even have the courage to fight him, it would severely affect Tao Yaoyao's future cultivation. Even if she managed to repair the crack in the golden elixir with the heaven-mending vine, she might not have any hope of surviving the lightning tribulation. She was a sword cultivator and originally paid attention to advancing courageously. Even though she wouldn't pursue pointless failure and casualties, if she retreated so easily, her sword heart was destined to be covered in dust. Because she had no chance to redeem herself. With Xiaoyan's current rate of improvement, the gap between the two of them would only grow larger and larger in the future. If Tao Yaoyao didn't have the thought of challenging Xiaoyan before then, that would be fine. But since she herself had the thought first, then she could only throw away all her worries and do her best. Victory or defeat is up to the heavens. Xiaoyan calmly looked at Tao Yaoyao. The matter of the Desolate Sea Assembly a year ago, Shi Tianhao, Zhu Yi and the others told him about it afterwards. So he knows that Tao Yaoyao once had the thought of fighting him. Celerita's sword sect. The corners of Xiaoyan's mouth revealed a faint smile, only that this smile was somewhat cold. If time went back to 4 years ago when he was still in Wuzhou City, facing Tao Yaoyao he probably wouldn't even be able to look up to her because she simply stood at a height that he couldn't even see. Murong Yanran was taken in by the Celerita's sword sect, and came to break off the engagement. His heart was filled with indignation, his fighting spirit unprecedentedly high. But he wasn't stupid, he also knew that to him at that time, the Celerita's sword sect was a colossus. And now, Xiaoyan lowered his head to look at Yujing Mountain beneath his feet, then looked around, looking at the enormous profound heaven treasure tree and the All Heavens Palace under the tree in the distance. In that palace sat the person who changed his fate. Xiaoyan smiled, raising his eyes to look at Tao Yaoyao. Tao Yaoyao slightly furrowed her brows because she astonishingly saw that there seemed to suddenly be flames flickering in Xiao Yan's eyes. From silence to a prairie fire in an instant, the current Xiao Yan's body exuded an extremely berserk aura, as if a natural disaster had descended. From within the All Heavens Palace, a ray of sword light suddenly shot out, like mist and lightning, abnormally swift, the human eye practically unable to capture its trajectory. Tao Yaoyao stared blankly, recognizing that it was the sword light of her master, Celerita's swordmaster. Xiao Yan's expression didn't change in the slightest, standing where he was. Although he wasn't old, he already vaguely had the aura of a grandmaster. The sword light enveloped the two of them, transforming into a sword world. This is the competition ground that Celerita's swordmaster made for the two of them. Within the sword world, Xiao Yan faintly smiled. The spiritual energy on Yujing Mountain is much more convenient for us Xian Gate disciples to mobilize. Having your master, Celerita's swordmaster, make the sword world is more fair for us in this battle. While speaking, Xiao Yan placed his hands behind his back, calmly looking at Tao Yaoyao. Xianmen Tianzong, Xiao Yan, please advise me. Tao Yaoyao composed herself, her state of mind instantly returning to the state of an ancient well without ripples. Celerita's swordmaster Tao Yaoyao, please advise me. Within the All Heavens Palace, Lin Feng and Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light watched this scene silently. Nothing that happened on Yujing Mountain could escape Lin Feng's eyes and ears, so he naturally discovered the movements between Xiao Yan and Tao Yaoyao. Xiao Yan and Tao Yaoyao's strength was quite impressive, especially the current Xiao Yan, whose battle strength far exceeded the scope of the Golden Elixir period cultivators. Although they wouldn't harm Yujing Mountain at all if they fought on Yujing Mountain, the noise would be too loud. This battle was actually not a fight to the death, so there was no need to alarm too many people. Lin Feng didn't use his own magic power to create a small world, instead giving this authority to Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light. He was completely unafraid of Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light's tricks, and with Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light's pride, he naturally wouldn't be so petty. However, in a sense, this meant that even Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light didn't have high hopes for his disciple. At this moment, Lin Feng was looking at Xiao Yan and Tao Yaoyao, feeling rather amused. Young lady, good luck to you. You're facing a destined one who has been sullen for an entire year. But the corners of Lin Feng's lips curled up slightly. Like teacher, like disciple. He turned to look at Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light, who was also looking at him. Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light said calmly, I hope that sect leader Lin can grant my wish. Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light's figure disappeared from the spot, gradually transforming into a longsword. This sword didn't have a physical body, only an outline formed by light rays. It exuded an elusive, fleeting, and powerful concept of power. It was like a fleeting flash of light. It was so short that it flashed by in a hurry, difficult to grasp or capture. It was Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light, who was at the second tier of the primordial spirit realm. He had manifested his return to void dermic body. Lin Feng watched the scene calmly. Fellow Taoist, why do you have to do this? Damage to a void return realm dharma body is no small matter. Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light said silently. Please enlighten me, sect leader Lin. He naturally knew that although a void return realm dharma body was powerful, it was very difficult to recover once it was damaged. In serious cases, it could even fall back to the first tier of the primordial spirit transformation realm. However, he could only unleash his strongest state at this moment. Unlike Tao Yaoyao, who had no idea how powerful Xiao Yan was, Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light had personally witnessed Lin Feng's attacks. The impression of Lin Feng's powerful strength was deeply engraved in his mind. The four great sword masters of Shushan, who were also at the second tier of the primordial spirit transformation realm, and were even slightly stronger than him, were helpless against Lin Feng. Lin Feng only needed to summon a dharma body with the mystique to challenge any one of them. Such strength was not something that a second-tier primordial spirit transformation realm cultivator could handle alone. However, Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light still issued a challenge to Lin Feng. This was because, like Tao Yaoyao, he was in a difficult position. After Lin Feng accompanied Xiao Yan to the cloud-traversing peak to fulfill the battle agreement, Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light, who had not accepted a personal disciple for several hundred years after Tao Yaoyao, made an exception on the spot and accepted Morong Yenran as his disciple. Although he did not say it out loud, he already had the intention to challenge Lin Feng. Ever since he was on the cloud-traversing peak, he had wanted to challenge Lin Feng to a battle. However, he had been delayed due to various considerations. Now he already knew how extraordinary Lin Feng's cultivation was. However, he had not fulfilled his long-cherished wish. This was a knot in his heart. At Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light's level, it was very difficult for one's state of mind to produce any lingering obstacles. However, once they did, they could not be resolved. Instead, they would be even more deeply rooted than cultivators of lower cultivation realms. Therefore, even before Tao Yaoyao had challenged Xiao Yan, Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light had already issued a challenge to Lin Feng first. Otherwise, in the long run, his determination would only become more and more shaky. At that time, even his sword heart would be damaged. Facing Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light, Lin Feng said calmly, "I respect fellow Taoists' firm Tao heart, so I will not use my divine ability Dharma body to fight with fellow Taoist." Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light replied solemnly, "In that case, thank you, sect leader Lin." Silently, Lin Feng stood where he was without moving. Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light knew that Lin Feng was waiting for him to make the first move. Without saying anything else, he activated his magic power, and with a flash of sword light, his sword-like return to void Dharma body disappeared in the void. When he reappeared, he was already right in front of Lin Feng. Not even a split second had passed. This sword had no other intention other than speed. It had displayed the sword intent that only speed could not be broken to the extreme, and it was about to surpass the limits of time. Lin Feng's heart stirred slightly, and he seemed to hear Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light's solemn words again. "Thank you, sect leader Lin." This was not Celerita's swordmaster Flowing Light repeating his words. Instead, it was as if his sword contained the power to reverse the flow of time. Instant sword escape is actually not much inferior to Mount Xiao's sword. Lin Feng nodded, still standing where he was without the slightest movement. Only a Tai Chi pattern suddenly appeared on his forehead. Black and white intertwined, and it started to spin. Chapter 503. Inside Swordsman Flowing Light's sword-shaped void returned Dharma physique, there was a flash of light hidden. The flash of light flickered, but it changed many times in an instant. It contained an extremely powerful sword will. As Swordsman Flowing Light's void returned Dharma physique flew towards Lin Feng, the flash of light suddenly brightened, turning into a colorful sword-shaped treasure. The flying sword's blade flashed continuously, reflecting a figure. It was an old man with long white hair and a long beard. He wore a high crown and ancient clothes, and his aura was fierce. The old man's eyes flashed continuously. In the blink of an eye, it changed 60 times. Each light and shadow was a different image. The treasure of the Celerita's sword sect, the incarnation level sword magic treasure, the instant Celerita's sword. This sword is the personal sword of the founder of the Celerita's sword sect, being refined into a magic weapon. Since the Celerita's sword sect was established tens of thousands of years ago, it has always been persistently refined by many powerhouses, long reaching the incarnation stage. Previously, Swordsman Flowing Light did not bring the instant Flowing Light with him, be it to the Desolate Sea Assembly or the Heaven Path Summit. This time he came to challenge Lin Feng, so he did not hesitate to bring his trump card treasure. Swordsman Flowing Light had already reached the Primordial Soul Level 2 and returned to the Void stage. The Manifestation Stage sword treasure, Instant Flowing Light, could unleash 100% of its power and effect in his hands. At this moment, the sword and body combined. Swordsman Flowing Light's Void Return Dharma physique and the sword light formed by the Instant Flowing Light merged into one, condensing into an incomparably dazzling light that pierced through time and space. In almost less than an instant, it attacked in front of Lin Feng. The Instant Flowing Light had been refined by powerful figures. The instant sword escape sword will it contained was incomparably profound. It also came from the same source as Swordsman Flowing Light. When the two joined forces, it was equivalent to the attack of two primordial soul return realm sword cultivators. Now that the sword wills resonated and fused, it produced an effect of 1 + 1 = 2. It was extremely sharp, almost reaching the limit of a primordial soul return realm sword cultivator. Venerated Swordsman of Mount Shu Sword Sect had once suppressed Venerated Swordsman of Flowing Light, who had just entered the primordial spirit stage and returned to the void stage at the Tianjia Peak. But now, when faced with this sword, if he did not have the Little Shang sword, one of the 6 meridians immortal swords, in hand, he could only die with a grievance on the spot. As for Lin Feng, his expression remained calm in the face of this sword attack that seemed to reverse time. He did not even move his body. However, a Taiji symbol appeared on his forehead and began to spin. The Taiji diagram spun, as if it had opened up another world. With a flash of light, the sword light from Sword Venerate Flowing Light and the instant Flowing Light sword, which had merged into one, entered the Taiji diagram on Lin Feng's forehead. The moment he entered the Taiji diagram, Sword Venerable Flowing Light's mind became slightly dazed. The chaos in front of him opened up, and the 4 images were re-established. The world was born, and the 8 trigrams gave birth to all things. A brand new creation appeared in front of him. In front of him, the world had changed. Even though his swordsmanship was divine, and the instantaneous flowing light sword in his hand was extremely profound, it was as if he was in a real world at this moment. He was helpless and did not know where to start. The instantaneous flowing light, and the sword intent of 1,000 years in an instant had lost its use in this world. The passage of time was ultimately just one of the principles of the world of creation. A component. This person is very powerful. It's not something that you and I can break. Beside Sword Venerable Flowing Light, a white-haired elder with a long beard and a tall crown appeared. He was not corporeal but formed from light and shadow. He was the sword spirit of the instant Flowing Light sword. In terms of seniority, he was much higher than Sword Venerable Flowing Light. When Sword Venerable Flowing Light heard the sword spirit's words, he slowly nodded. That's right. I'm not this person's match. Before the challenge, I actually had a feeling. However, this battle is imperative. I will definitely not avoid it. It's just that from the looks of it, I'm ultimately asking for humiliation. A rare look of regret surfaced on Sword Venerable Flowing Light's usually arrogant face. The sword spirit stood beside him in silence. As the cornerstone treasure of the Celestial Light Sword Sect, he had experienced the changes of over 10,000 years. Now that he had suffered such a great defeat, he was unable to remain calm. Suddenly, Lin Feng's voice rang out in the vast heaven and earth. It was calm as usual. The path is before you. Why are you hesitating? Sword Venerable Flowing Light did not speak. After a long while, his expression returned to normal. He nodded and said, "What sect leader Lin said is correct. From the moment I set foot on this Jade Capital Mountain, it no longer matters what the result is. Many thanks for sect leader Lin's generosity. If I can improve again in the future, today's defeat will be due to you," Sword Venerable Flowing Light said seriously. He did not have the slightest intention of provoking or being unconvinced. Instead, he was sincerely expressing his gratitude to Lin Feng. He was truly willing to submit. Lin Feng faintly smiled. "Congratulations, fellow Taoist, on your harvest." The Tai Chi pattern on his forehead rotated. A beam of flowing light shot out from it. The flowing light split into 2 in the air and landed on the ground. They respectively revealed the appearance of Sword Venerable Flowing Light and the sword spirit of the instant Flowing Light sword. Sword Venerable Flowing Light and the sword spirit both half-bowed towards Lin Feng. "Many thanks for your guidance, sect leader Lin." Lin Feng waved his hand. "You don't have to be so polite." He looked out of the hall and said with a smile, "Oh, the competition between our disciples is about to end." After he was no longer trapped by Lin Feng's primordial spirit, Sword Venerable Flowing Light immediately sensed the movement in the sword realm formed by his sword light. The battle between him and Lin Feng had ended in an instant. Therefore, after their battle ended, the battle between Xiao Yan and Tao Yaoyao had only just begun. However, neither of them were the type to drag things out. One move to decide the victor. Both of them had the same thought, to decide the victor in one move. Xiao Yan's personality was originally used to slowly reveal his trump cards, but in this year's time, he had really been stifled for too long. As a result, when fighting with Tao Yaoyao this time, he immediately used a big move. In the sword Venerable Flowing Light realm, a terrifying blue-purple bird flapped its wings and flew high into the sky. It emitted an extremely terrifying aura, as if it wanted to destroy everything in the world. It was the Nether Evil Emperor. The Nether Evil Emperor had transformed into the form of a bird. In addition to being violent and domineering in the past, it also had the power of agility and speed. Lin Feng glanced at it and smiled in his heart. The vermilion bird? Tao Yaoyao originally wanted to use the speed advantage of her instant sword escape to fight with speed. However, she did not expect Xiao Yan to transform into the form of the vermilion bird with the Nether Evil Emperor. His speed was not much slower than the instant sword escape, but his destructive power was much stronger. Xiao Yan accurately captured Tao Yaoyao's sword light and turned the counterattack into a head-on attack. Tao Yaoyao suffered a great loss this way. At this moment, in front of the bird formed by the blue-purple flames, Tao Yaoyao stood with her sword. She did not look dispirited. She only sighed softly. It seems like it won't work. The shape of the bird gradually became blurry and turned into a dark blue-purple sea of flames. A figure slowly walked out of the sea of flames. It was Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan stood in the blue sea of flames, looking evil and domineering. He looked calm. Do you want to continue? Tao Yaoyao looked at Xiao Yan, who seemed to have come from the netherworld, and controlled the world-destroying demonic flames. He looked like a flaming Yama king and sighed. She sheathed her sword and did not say anything. During the clash just now, Tao Yaoyao clearly felt that the cracks on her golden elixir had widened. It was almost completely shattered. At that moment, the sword Venerable Flowing Light's sword realm shook and almost automatically helped Tao Yaoyao. She had lost this battle and could not say anything. She had been killed by Xiao Yan in one move. Sword Venerable Flowing Light and Instant Sword Art looked at the image in the sword realm. They looked at each other and shook their heads. Xianmen Tianzong was really ridiculously powerful. Sword Venerable Flowing Light turned to look at Lin Feng and thought. The world formed by black and white qi just now was the primordial spirit incarnation of the sect master of the celestial sect of wonders? I wonder what his return to void stage physique and Dao integration stage looks like. To be honest, he had lost even more miserably than Tao Yaoyao. Tao Yaoyao and Xiao Yan were at least attacking each other. Sword Venerable Flowing Light used instant sword art to attack Lin Feng, but Lin Feng did not retaliate at all. He revealed a bit of the aura of his primordial spirit incarnation and opened the world gate. He swallowed Sword Venerable Flowing Light and instant sword art together. He kept this person and sword in his primordial spirit and did not attack. No matter how the other party struggled, it was all in vain. Such mystique and dermic powers immediately subdued Sword Venerable Flowing Light and instant sword art. The sword spirit of instant sword art sighed and communicated with Sword Venerable Flowing Light through his spiritual sense. At the Heaven Track Peak meeting, no wonder this person could break the 6 Meridian Immortal Heaven Sword formation without revealing his primordial spirit incarnation. With such mystique and dermic powers, Shushan's loss is not undeserved. Sword Venerable Flowing Light nodded and did not reply. He flipped his palm and took out an item, handing it to Lin Feng. This is what Sect Master Lin requested. In exchange for my disciple Yaoyao's heaven-mending vine, please accept it, Sect Master Lin. It was a small pocket, and in the pocket, there was a lot of crystal clear sand. Previously, when they parted at the Heaven Track Peak, Lin Feng had communicated with Sword Venerable Flowing Light, and had already specified Tao Yaoyao's reward for the heaven-mending vine. This time, Sword Venerable Flowing Light had followed Tao Yaoyao to fulfill the promise and brought the item over. Thank you, fellow Taoist. Lin Feng smiled slightly and kept the quicksand. On the other side, Sword Venerable Flowing Light also dispersed the sword realm, and Xiao Yan and Tao Yaoyao came out together. Sword Venerable Flowing Light glanced at Xiao Yan and nodded slightly. Yesterday's dust at the bottom of the valley, today's talent reaching the clouds. I look forward to your tomorrow. Xiaoyan looked at Sword Venerable Flowing Light with some surprise. With Sword Venerable Flowing Light status saying such words, it was almost equivalent to saying that the dispute between Xiaoyan and Murong Yenran previously, Celerita's sword sect had completely admitted defeat. On the cloud-traversing peak, after Murong Yenran was defeated, Sword Venerable Flowing Light immediately announced that he would take her as his personal disciple. It was clear that he wanted to teach her carefully, so that Murong Yenran could defeat Xiaoyan in the future, and regain the face of Celerita's sword sect. Everyone present was well aware that the enmity between the two parties had been formed, and would continue to be entangled. And today, Sword Venerable Flowing Light's words were equivalent to taking the initiative to give up his original plan, tacitly admitting that he was the losing party. Me defeating Tao Yaoyao should be one of the reasons, but Xiaoyan subconsciously looked at Lin Feng. Does this have something to do with Master? Chapter 504. Not only had Tao Yaoyao been defeated by Xiaoyan in one move, but Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light had also been defeated by Lin Feng. Lin Feng had not even used a single Dharma spell. He had only used his primordial spirit to devour Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light. Unable to break free, Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light could only bow his head and admit defeat. However, to Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light and Tao Yaoyao, since they had not been defeated, this battle was not considered a loss. Instead, they had fulfilled their wish. This battle also allowed them to understand the power of the Celestial Sect of Wonders even more. After a short conversation with Lin Feng, the two of them bade farewell. Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light still had to rush back to Cloud Traversing Peak with Tao Yaoyao, and planned to use the spiritual power of the Sky-Mending Vine to repair Tao Yaoyao's damaged golden elixir. After descending Yujing Mountain, and returning to the boundless world of the Divine Land, Tao Yaoyao looked at the empty sky above her head and sighed. Xianmen Tianzong is indeed extraordinary. Xiaoyan is indeed worthy of being the eldest disciple of the Master of the Celestial Gates. She turned to look at her master, Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light. Master, although I only exchanged one move with Xiaoyan and did not personally fight with Zhu Yi, Shi Tianhao, and the others, I have a feeling that Xiaoyan might be the strongest among all the disciples of the Master of the Celestial Gates. At this moment, when she was talking to Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light, Tao Yaoyao spoke from the bottom of her heart. It was her most intuitive feeling. Venerable Swordsman Flowing Light replied, "If you want to decide victory in one move, what you said is probably not wrong. This child is proud and arrogant. In this battle between you and him, he used his weakness to clash head-on with your strength. He did not show his strongest side. Right now, his cultivation is at the late stage of the golden elixir, but if he fuses his true fire, even a late-stage Yuaniing cultivator might not be able to withstand it with his heaven and earth Dharma idol." Tao Yaoyao nodded. "I've heard from junior brother Zhao and the others that he managed to perfectly fuse the true sun fire and the nether evil emperor fire on the cloud-traversing peak. His strength is simply astonishing. Now that his cultivation level has increased, I'm sure that the attack power of his true fire fusion will also improve." But Tao Yaoyao was confused. "I'm not doubting you, Master. I believe you if you say that he can defeat a mid-stage Yuaniing cultivator, but a late-stage Yuaniing cultivator is much stronger than a mid-stage Yuaniing cultivator when he unleashes his avatar of heaven and earth. Will he be able to defeat him?" Swordsman Flowing Light said indifferently. Although he did not reveal it, it is very likely that he possesses more than two types of true flames. Tao Yaoyao was shocked. She naturally understood that if Xiaoyan could perfectly fuse the three types of true flames, the increase in strength would not be a mere 1 + 2 = 3. Instead, it would be much stronger than the power of two types of true flames fusing. Swordsman Flowing Light glanced at her and said calmly, "Of course, it's not just Xiaoyan. The cultivations of Xianmen Tianzong's disciples are all improving with each passing day. After not seeing them for a day, there might be huge changes. For example, Wang Lin." Tao Yaoyao opened her mouth, but did not make a sound. A bitter smile appeared on her face. "That's right. Who would have thought that Wang Lin, who was only at the early stage foundation establishment realm at the Desolate Sea Assembly, would actually successfully form his gold core after a mere few months. Tao Yaoyao still remembered that even her own master, Swordsman Flowing Light, who had reached the primordial spirit realm, was slightly shocked when he first heard the news. If Swordsman Flowing Light was already like that, there was no need to talk about Tao Yaoyao and the rest. When the news spread, all the Celeritas Sword Sect disciples who had participated in the Desolate Sea Assembly were dumbfounded, and felt that it was unbelievable. So if Zhu Yi and Shi Tianhao's strength have greatly increased now, it is also within expectations. Compared to Xiao Yan, it is still unknown who is stronger and who is weaker. Swordsman Flowing Light's expression was indifferent. However, if it is a competition of instant explosive power in actual combat, I still favor the power of Xiao Yan's true flame fusion. That was why it was said that Xiao Yan had a higher chance of winning if it was decided in one strike. After a while, Tao Yaoyao came back to her senses and laughed. Xianmen Tianzong's group is really a bunch of monsters. She smiled and looked at Swordsman Flowing Light. Swordsman Flowing Light was also looking at her calmly. Tao Yaoyao smiled and said, I will definitely work hard and strive to become one of the monsters. If I don't succeed, Master, please don't blame me. Tao Yaoyao, who had always been strong and competitive, seemed to have no confidence when she said such words. However, her eyes were filled with fighting spirit, and there was not the slightest bit of disappointment or anxiety. Swordsman Flowing Light's usually serious and dignified face also revealed a hint of a smile. He looked at Tao Yaoyao and nodded. Very good. He broke open a spatial crack in front of him and brought Tao Yaoyao into the void. Let's return to the mountain first, and use the heaven-mending vine to repair your golden elixir. You have been stuck at the later stages of the golden elixir for too long. After watching Swordsman Flowing Light and his disciple leave, Lin Feng turned to look at Xiao Yan and said with a smile, Swordsman Flowing Light seems to have noticed that you have a third type of true flame. Xiao Yan chuckled. I didn't suppress my aura at the start of the battle. Lin Feng saw that there seemed to be restless flames flickering in his eyes. He knew that Xiao Yan had actually suppressed himself in the battle just now. You. Lin Feng smiled and pointed at Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan chuckled and did not deny it. Lin Feng threw him into the pill room, and returned to the heavenly gold pavilion. Rascal, if you have the strength, go use it on the pill cauldron or focus on your own cultivation. In the following days, Jade Capital Mountain regained its peace. Xiao Yan, Zhu Yi, and the others focused on cultivating and teaching their respective disciples. It was already autumn when Zhu Yi would once again head to the Great Zhou Empire's Tianjing city to participate in the imperial examinations. Lin Feng thought to himself, this time, I don't have to go out of my way to take the examinations. However, I should prepare a mount for Xiaoyi. Ever since Jie Yu refined the yellow dragon's skeleton, she had been in closed-door cultivation. King Kuei Niu and King Feilian were currently in the desolate Sky Valley, setting up the wind and thunder transformation formation to help Shi Tianhao in his closed-door cultivation. Luckily, I'm prepared. Lin Feng smiled and raised his hand to release a ball of purple air. The air ball formed a small world. In the small world, there were blue waves, blue sky above, and the sea below. In the sky, a giant golden eagle spread its wings and soared. Its feathers were like iron, and it had 9 sharp claws under its abdomen. Its eyes were filled with ferocity and anxiety. In the deep sea below, there was a vague shadow moving. As the shadow swam, it gradually became clearer and floated to the surface. It was huge, like a small continent, but it was a giant whale. These were the helpers that Kuan-Yue ancestor found when Lin Feng was searching for the Kuan-Peng's treasure. One was the 9-clawed eagle king, and the other was the North Sea whale king. Both were late-stage demon kings. They ran amok in the Arctic Ice Sea. Together with Kuan-Yue ancestor, they offended Lin Feng and were both captured by Lin Feng. After these 2 demon kings were captured by Lin Feng, he sealed them with the heavenly small world. He also tortured them so that they didn't dare to act rashly. Lin Feng didn't forget about the 2 of them during the live broadcast of the previous battles. After seeing Lin Feng's hand stop, the 2 demon kings were completely numb, and didn't dare to have any thoughts of resisting. However, they were imprisoned by Lin Feng and didn't have any freedom. They were extremely anxious and didn't know what would happen to them in the future. Although the two late-stage demon kings couldn't compare to great sage demon kings, they were still full of treasures. Lin Feng didn't need them, but his disciples could. At this moment, the two demon kings suddenly heard Lin Feng's voice. "Come out!" The heavenly small world gradually dissipated. The nine-clawed eagle king and the North Sea whale king carefully transformed into human forms. Their true forms were too big. The nine-clawed eagle king transformed into human form. He was tall and sturdy and had a large hooked nose. Beside him stood a strong man over 3 meters tall. It was the North Sea whale king in human form. The two demon kings bowed respectfully to Lin Feng. "Greetings, Celestial Gate Master. We have offended you before. Please forgive us, Celestial Gate Master." They were all a bit nervous in their hearts, nervously looking at Lin Feng, waiting for his final judgment on them. Lin Feng's expression was indifferent. He flicked his finger lightly. 2 beams of purple light shot into the nine-clawed eagle king and the North Sea whale king's eyes, and went deep into their minds. They wrapped around the necks of their demon infants like 2 silk threads. The nine-clawed eagle king and the North Sea whale king instinctively wanted to resist. The 2 purple threads tightened and immediately suffocated the 2 demon kings. Lin Feng said indifferently, "You all offended me. Originally you would have ended up with your body and soul destroyed, but I remember that the heavens have the virtue of cherishing life. Today I will give you all a chance. Convert to my Xian Gate Sky sect and work for my Xian Gate to make up for your past sins. I will now give you a chance to redeem yourselves. My disciple Zhu Yi will be leaving for the Great Zhou Dynasty's Tianjing city in a few days. One of you will send him off." The 2 demon kings' faces immediately fell. How could they not understand that Lin Feng wanted to find a mount for Zhu Yi? Most of the demon race are arrogant and untamed. No matter if it's the nine-clawed eagle king or the North Sea whale king, they're both ruthless characters who used to roam freely in the Arctic Ice Sea. Even if they've been captured by Lin Feng for a long time and a lot of their edges have been worn down, and they fear Lin Feng's remarkable abilities, they're still not willing to be at Lin Feng's beck and call, let alone become the mounts of Lin Feng's disciples. The North Sea whale king lowered his head and didn't make a sound. The nine-clawed eagle king's eyes darted back and forth as he thought, "I'll give in first and take this chance to leave. When the time comes, I'll find a chance to escape." I wonder what his disciple's level of cultivation is. Should I kill him to vent my anger? I'd better not. It might cause trouble. Lin Feng glanced at the nine-clawed eagle king indifferently. The nine-clawed eagle king suddenly felt a chill run down its spine. In the next moment, the thread Lin Feng had wrapped around its demon infant tightened abruptly, almost cutting it in half. The nine-clawed eagle king knelt on the ground in pain and begged for mercy. Lin Feng's calm voice rang out. "Even though you refused to come to your senses, tried to escape, and even had evil thoughts in your heart, I will spare you this time since you reined yourself in at the last moment. You may be spared from death, but you will not be spared from punishment. Take this as a lesson." The purple thread suddenly burst into flames, and the golden flames directly burned the nine-clawed eagle king's demon infant. In just a short while, the nine-clawed eagle king was on the verge of death, no longer daring to have any strange thoughts. Even the North Sea whale king, who was watching from the side, shuddered when he saw this scene. His attitude immediately softened. After the stick was used, there would be carrots. Lin Feng said silently, "If you join my Xianmen Tianzong, as long as you do your job well, I will not treat you badly. You will all have your own cave abodes and can cultivate on my mountain. The spiritual qi there is much more abundant than the Arctic ice sea you used to live in. Other than that, if you do your job well, you will also receive other rewards. That's all I have to say. You can decide for yourselves where you want to go." Chapter 505. If you stay in Xianmen Tianzong, as long as you work hard and remain loyal, your chances of attaining an indestructible demon soul will be far greater than if you cultivate on your own. Lin Feng's last sentence made the nine-clawed eagle king and the North Sea whale king completely relax their mental defenses. Having escaped the shackles of the small worlds formed by Lin Feng's mana, they were now on Jade Capital Mountain. Sensing the abundant spiritual energy here, the two demons knew that Lin Feng was not lying. The cultivation environment here was far better than the Arctic ice sea where they used to live. If they could receive Lin Feng's guidance, their cultivation would be twice the result with half the effort. Lin Feng casually showed them the yellow dragon scale, and mentioned Jieyu's gains, intentionally or unintentionally. This immediately made the nine-clawed eagle king and the North Sea whale king even more willing to submit. Using both hard and soft tactics, after a long internal battle, the two great demons prostrated in front of Lin Feng one after another. We are willing to become sect master's disciples, to be at your beck and call, without any disloyalty. We hope that sect master can guide us. Lin Feng faintly smiled, and separately set up restrictions on the two souls and demon infant. It would not restrict the two demons from using their strength, but as long as he wills it, the two demons' life and death would be out of their control. Lin Feng called the nine-clawed eagle king forward. You are a bird-type demon, so your flying speed is even faster. This time, you will escort my disciple, Zhu Yi, to the examination. The nine-clawed eagle king faced Lin Feng's calm gaze and answered sternly, I will obey sect master's orders. I will do my best to escort your disciple. He was a clever person and continued, I will listen to Zhu Yi's instructions on the way. Please rest assured, sect master. That will be for the best. Lin Feng nodded. If you do your best, I will not mistreat you. Lin Feng turned to look at the North Sea whale king on the other side. Although there are excellent stone chambers and cave abodes on this celestial mountain, I think you're naturally fond of water. I'm afraid you won't be used to it. However, there's no need to worry. He clapped his palms lightly, and an infinite amount of purple gas floated into the air. It surged in the void outside Mount Yujing and instantly turned into a sheet of watery light. The North Sea whale king took a closer look and found that the water wasn't very big. It was only about an acre in size and resembled a pond. However, it was actually a compressed space. From the outside it didn't look big, but inside it was as vast as a vast ocean. It was so vast that it was difficult to find an end. The North Sea whale king hurriedly cupped his fists towards Lin Feng. Thank you for your pity, sect master. Lin Feng smiled and said, Go and decorate your new home yourself. The North Sea whale king flew into the air and landed in the water. Its body flipped over, and it had already transformed into a gigantic whale, floating on the water like a small island. Being in the water, he was pleasantly surprised to find that the water temperature in this region was very low. Other people would feel bone-chilling cold, but it made him feel very comfortable. It was actually similar to the environment of the Arctic ice sea where he had been active in the past. This is sect master's intention. Thinking of this, the North Sea whale king sighed inwardly. Sigh. The nine-clawed eagle king watched enviously from the side. Lin Feng glanced at him indifferently. Go and make preparations. You'll be setting off in a few days. Yes, sect master. The nine-clawed eagle king obeyed respectfully. A few days later, Zhu Yi was ready to set off. Lin Feng led the nine-clawed eagle king. This demon transformed into a gigantic golden eagle with 9 claws under its abdomen. When it spread its wings, it could blot out the sky and cover the sun. Zhu Yi already knew that this was the mount Lin Feng had specially prepared for him. A smile appeared on his face. Thank you, master. Lin Feng passed the restriction restraining the nine-clawed eagle king to Zhu Yi, so that he could directly control it. Then he extended a finger and lightly tapped the space between Zhu Yi's eyebrows. Zhu Yi immediately felt an extremely mysterious aura buried in the depths of his consciousness. The existence of this aura did not affect Zhu Yi in the slightest when he cultivated or used his transcendence energy in battle. Although Zhu Yi could clearly sense its existence, it would not affect Zhu Yi's movements in the slightest. Lin Feng said, That's a Theurgy avatar of mine. It's buried in your spirit and can be used for protection, just in case. Normally, it won't affect you in any way, nor will it interfere with your movements. It will only come into play when you're in mortal danger. Zhu Yi nodded. Disciple understands. Thank you, master. Lin Feng was not worried that Zhu Yi would slack off with his avatar protecting him. Zhu Yi had a firm mind and willpower. Even in the face of danger, he would first think of using his own strength to defeat the enemy, and not rely on this protective talisman that Lin Feng had given him. Moreover, Lin Feng fully believed that chosen one like Zhu Yi was extremely resilient. Even if they narrowly escaped death, it would only be an embellishment on their path to glory. Turning danger into safety was a matter of course. However, it was better to be safe than sorry. So Lin Feng still gave a theurgy avatar to Zhu Yi. Zhu Yi climbed onto the nine-clawed Eagle King's back and turned to look at the other side. There were his two inner disciples, Su Yinxing and Ying Luoza. Besides them, there was also a purple-clothed girl. She was Wang Lin's inner disciple, Li Xingfei, who often came to listen to his lectures. The three of them respectfully bowed to Zhu Yi. I wish Master a smooth journey. I wish Second Martial Uncle a smooth journey. Zhu Yi nodded. When I'm not on the mountain, cultivate on your own. Don't slack off. When I return, I'll test your Taoist arts. The three of them responded in unison. Zhu Yi continued. Currently your cultivation levels are still low. When your cultivation levels are higher, I'll bring you out into the world to train. After reminding Su Yinxing and the other two, Zhu Yi bowed to Lin Feng. Master, I'll be leaving now. Lin Feng smiled and nodded. Zhu Yi lightly tapped the nine-clawed Eagle King beneath his feet. The huge golden eagle immediately flew up. With Lin Feng's permission, it tore through space and flew away from Mount Yujing, entering the boundless world of the Divine Land. The nine-clawed Eagle King spread its wings and disappeared into the void again, flying toward the capital of the Great Zhou Dynasty, Tianjing City. After Su Yinsheng, Ying Luoza, and Li Xingfei watched Zhu Yi leave, they secretly glanced at Lin Feng. Other than Ying Luoza, the other two were a little nervous. In fact, even the fearless Ying Luoza felt nervous when facing Lin Feng at such a close distance. Lin Feng didn't pay attention to his three nervous grand disciples. He also looked in the direction that Zhu Yi had left in. He thought to himself, Xiaoyi's trip to Tianjing City this time will probably cause quite a commotion. With the nine-clawed Eagle King as a mount, Zhu Yi arrived within the Great Zhou Empire's territory very quickly. Almost as soon as he arrived, the various forces all received the news, whether quickly or slowly. At this moment it wasn't just Lin Feng. The actions of the important figures within Xianmen Tianzong began to affect the minds of more and more people. Emperor Liang Pan of the Great Zhou was, without a doubt, the first to receive the news. He sat on his throne, silently looking at the desk in front of him. He didn't say anything. Chief Steward of the Imperial Palace, Mei Wulong, quietly and respectfully stood below. Liang Pan thought for a moment, then slowly said, Wulong, notify Hongwu that now is not the time. Mei Wulong respectfully replied, Your servant understands. He hesitated slightly, carefully looking towards Emperor Liang Pan. Your Majesty, regarding the son of the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Yi, do you need me to give him some pointers? Liang Pan smiled. No need, he's also a smart person. We believe he knows what he can do and what he can't do. He lightly sighed. It's a pity, this should have been a talent of my Great Zhou. However, at least he didn't fall into the hands of Taishu Temple. After Mei Wulong left, only Liang Pan of the Great Zhou was left in the hall. An even lower and almost inaudible sigh sounded out again. Perhaps it would have been better if he had fallen into the hands of Taishu Temple. After receiving Liang Pan's orders from Mei Wulong, the Marquis of Xuanji, Zhu Hongwu, silently sat on a chair in the main hall of the house of the Marquis of Xuanji, deep in thought. On the seat below him sat a woman wearing a light green feathered dress with golden threads. Her hair was tall and straight, a pure gold hollowed-out peacock hairpin in her hair. She looked around 30 but not 40 years old, her bearing graceful and noble. Hongwu, that woman's son is about to return. This woman is the Marquis of Xuanji Zhu Hongwu's official wife, Madame Xiao. She looks like she doesn't have any cultivation, and is just an ordinary secular woman, but she firmly occupies the position of the main wife of the house of the Marquis of Xuanji. Last time he came in a hurry and left in a hurry, not causing any waves. But this time he's really about to return. Madame Xiao said silently. I heard people say that with his current cultivation, in the entire house of the Marquis, apart from you, there's no one who can control him. Madame Xiao lightly let out a breath. I'm afraid his return this time is not simple. There are rumors that he and the fourth Prince Qian are very close. At this time Zhu Hongwu opened his mouth silently. The crown prince is the legitimate heir, the foundation of the country. Getting rid of the old and replacing the young will cause endless trouble in the future. Your Majesty is very clear in your heart that the fourth prince has no chance. Anyone who gets involved in the quagmire of the fight for the throne will not have a good ending. If Zhu Yi gets involved, then he's looking for trouble. Zhu Hongwu said. Don't worry, he won't be able to cause any waves, I know what I'm doing. Madame Xiao's lips moved, almost squeezing out a sentence from between her teeth. I heard that his master. Zhu Hongwu raised his hand and interrupted her. No matter if it's my Zhou dynasty or the other side. Right now it's still not the time to truly cause a great storm. When the true great storm starts, unimportant small boats will sink at the first instant. At that time I'll personally take care of that unfilial son. You can leave, I'm going to start training. Madame Xiao nodded. After so many years, you've always had a plan in mind. Since you've said so, I won't disturb you anymore. Just focus on your training. She walked out of the hall, a trace of worry flashing across her face. In the past, when Hongwu made a decision, I always felt at ease. But this time, I can't feel at ease. I feel like trouble is about to break out. Zhu Yi's trip to Tianjing City for the fall quarter examinations had affected more than 1 or 2 people. At this moment in Tianjing City, there were 2 people strolling on the streets. They seemed to be nonchalant, but in reality, they were communicating telepathically. One of them was a middle-aged scholar, and the other was a handsome young man. They were the advisor from the Golden Elixir period under the command of the Zhou dynasty's prince, Liang Qian, and the disciple from beyond Sky Mountain, Chu Yang, who had met Lin Feng once. Last time Zhu Yi came and left in a hurry, so I didn't have a chance to interact with him. This time he's taking the fall quarter examinations, so it's a great opportunity. The middle-aged scholar said telepathically to Chu Yang, but he saw that Chu Yang was a little distracted. As Chu Yang walked, he turned his head to look behind him. Why does that place make my heart palpitate? The direction that caught his attention was the mansion of the Zhou dynasty's crown prince, Chenyu. Chapter 506. Chu Yang gazed at the mansion of the great Zhou dynasty's crown prince, Chenyu, in a daze. He felt as if there was something there that attracted him, making his heart palpitate. It was as if he would regret it for the rest of his life if he missed it. Beside him was a middle-aged cultivator of the Golden Elixir period called Lu Bin. He was the fourth Prince Liang Qian's trusted aide. After spending a year with Chu Yang, he knew that this young man was not ordinary, but he would often be absent-minded like this. Lu Bin said, although Chenyu does not cultivate the Tao, he has a good official reputation and outstanding talent. For the crown prince, he will undoubtedly be a great help. Chu Yang came back to his senses and nodded. Yes, that is indeed the case. You are in charge of intelligence. What, do you feel that something is wrong with Chenyu? Lu Bin also turned to look at Chenyu's mansion. Or have you found something on him? Chu Yang's intuition told him that the reason for his palpitations was not Chenyu himself, but the feeling in his heart was faintly discernible, sometimes absent, and he could not make head or tail of it. It would be easy to get rid of this person, but I'm afraid it would be difficult to explain to the emperor. It would be a taboo and have the opposite effect. Chu Yang went with the flow and replied without a change in expression. From the looks of it, Chenyu doesn't have any weaknesses that I can exploit. However, from the recent reports, he and the crown prince are somewhat estranged. They aren't as close as before. I do not know the reason, but I will pay attention to this. Whether Chenyu falls or betrays the crown prince, it is a good thing for His Highness. Lu Bin said. That is indeed the case. In addition, more and more people are starting to think highly of His Highness. Fourth Prince Liang Qian had previously visited Kunlun Mountain and Shu Mountain, and had successfully completed his mission. He had done his job well, and received the praise of Emperor Liang Pan, even receiving the title of Prince of Zhou. For the great Zhou dynasty, Zhou was the title of the country, and was not easily conferred. Only before the crown prince was chosen would a prince be conferred the title of Prince of Zhou. This was usually seen as a rehearsal for the succession. when Emperor Liang Pan was still a prince, and the current crown prince, Liang Yuan, had both been conferred the title of Prince of Zhou. But now, Liang Yuan was still sitting on the throne of the Eastern Palace crown prince, while the fourth prince, Liang Qian, had been conferred the title of Prince of Zhou. This matter had undoubtedly caused a violent earthquake in the imperial court of the Great Zhou dynasty. Emperor Liang's thoughts caused his officials to rack their brains to think, trying to guess the hidden meaning behind each of his movements. Some thought that Crown Prince Liang Yuan's position as heir apparent was unstable, while others thought that Emperor Liang Pan was just testing the waters. There were all sorts of speculations. The ministers were also racking their brains. Liang Pan's control over the Great Zhou dynasty's court was quite strong. Most of them decided to bide their time and observe the situation. However, there were also a few people who had some ideas and started to draw closer to the fourth prince, Liang Qian. Lu Bin changed the topic. Last time, Zhu Yi came and left in a hurry. He only had a short conversation with the fourth prince. This time he has come to take the fall examinations. After the fall examinations, it will be the court examinations. He will definitely stay in Tianjing City for a long time. Chu Yang nodded. This is indeed a good opportunity to get in touch with Zhu Yi, but we have to be careful. Xianmen Tianzong is, after all, external help. If we get too close, I'm afraid that the one sitting in the imperial city will not be happy. The two looked at each other and sighed. No one had thought that Xianmen Tianzong would be so powerful that even the Mount Shu sword sect had suffered a great loss in front of Lin Feng. As Xianmen Tianzong's influence grew, the fourth prince Liang Qian could no longer be too close to Xianmen Tianzong. But the stronger Xianmen Tianzong was, the more powerful a support he could not ignore. His control of distance and propriety was a very challenging thing. When he thought of Lin Feng, Chu Yang's heart grew heavier. In the Kunlun mountain range, he had successfully detected traces of the assassination. This achievement had allowed him to establish a firm foothold under Liang Qian. But perhaps the other was overly cautious, or perhaps there was a large error in his memory, but the assassination did not proceed as planned. The other had easily given up. In Chu Yang's memory, the fuse that had caused the clash between the Great Zhou dynasty and the Mount Shu sword sect, the Kunlun mountain range assassination, had disappeared without a trace. In reality, although Chu Yang, Liang Qian, Lu Bin, and the others had realized the existence of the assassination, all of them broke out in a cold sweat. They had no confidence that they could safely pass through this crisis. At the time, Lu Bin had already advised Liang Qian to cancel the visit out of consideration for his safety and return home. In the end, the storm that had been brewing quickly calmed down. Liang Qian had successfully visited Xianmen Tianzong and the Mount Shu sword sect, then returned to the Great Zhou dynasty unscathed, and was rewarded by Emperor Liang Pan of Zhou. The Great Zhou dynasty and the Mount Shu sword sect were also at peace. However, at the Tianjia Peak meeting, the Mount Shu sword sect had run over to cause trouble and clash with Lin Feng. In the end, they had been defeated. But none of this had anything to do with Liang Qian, Chu Yang, or Beyond Heaven Mountain. Liang Qian had safely stayed in Tianjing City as the newly minted emperor of Zhou. Beyond Heaven Mountain was safe and sound. It had not become a sacrifice in the clash between the two superpowers. If everything had developed according to Chu Yang's seemingly illusory memories, where he could not tell if it was a dream or the real future, Beyond Heaven Mountain would have been destroyed because of the assassination. Chu Yang was happy about this, but he was also a little fearful, because the development of the real world was completely different from what he remembered. If it was because he had foreseen the future and changed the course of events, Chu Yang would feel gratified. But the changes in the current situation did not have much to do with him. At the very least, his hard work was not the main factor. This made Chu Yang feel fearful. It was as if Lin Feng had never existed in his memories. This made Chu Yang gradually start to suspect, could it really be that it was just a simple dream? After returning to Tianjing City with Liang Qian from Kunlun Mountain and Mount Shu, Chu Yang's nerves were still tense. He was on guard against Wu Qingru and the Great Qin dynasty's next move. But in the end, his nervousness was for nothing. Wu Qingru seemed to have completely given up on her original plan of having the Mount Shu sword sect and the Great Zhou dynasty restrict each other. After Chu Yong carefully summarized the information from all sides, he gradually figured out a few things. Xianmen Tianzong had replaced the Great Zhou dynasty and become the opponent of the Mount Shu sword sect. At this moment, Chu Yang's emotions were undoubtedly complicated. He had tried to use his foresight to change the fate of himself and beyond Heaven Mountain. In the end, fate had really changed, but the person who had caused all of this to happen was not him. In fact, the person who had controlled the situation and changed the situation was at a level too high. So high that Chu Yang could not see through the game between them. No matter what, beyond Heaven Mountain and Master will be fine. That's good, that's good. Chu Yang took a deep breath. Apart from that, the only thing that I miss is Qinggu. Qinggu. Chu Yang's mind suddenly flashed. He had originally started walking forward with Lu Bin, but now he suddenly stopped and turned back to look at Chen Yu's residence. Could it be that Qinggu is there? Although he felt that it was somewhat absurd, Chu Yang felt the throbbing in his heart grow stronger and stronger. When he gradually calmed down, Chu Yang suddenly felt his body become somewhat cold. The strange changes in the assassination once again appeared in his mind. This time, will there be changes that are completely different from what I remember? On Jade Capital Mountain, Lin Feng sat cross-legged on the mysterious sky treasure tree silently. He analyzed Taoist techniques and sacrificial refined his Dharma treasure. He still did not know that he had brought great trouble to an outstanding young man who had a bright future and had 5 stresses and 4 beauties. At this moment, Lin Feng was more concerned about his Dharma treasure. After a long time, he slowly retracted his magic power and shook his head. Using Dharma treasures is enjoyable, but sacrificial refining is really a time-consuming and laborious matter. Enlightening a Dharma treasure's spiritual consciousness and carrying out the preliminary refinement was a test of a cultivator's cultivation base. However, if the enlightenment was successful, it would not take too long. It was just that the subsequent sacrificial refinement was time-consuming and laborious. If one wanted to complete the refinement, they would need a lot of time and energy. As Lin Feng pondered, he suddenly had a thought. He raised his head and looked in the direction of Xiao Yan's burning heaven cliff. This feeling, it seems like something is being nurtured and born. Subsequently, he heard Xiao Yan's somewhat anxious voice transmission using magic power. Master, there's something wrong with the Wutong tree's heart. Lin Feng frowned slightly. In the next moment, he arrived in front of Xiao Yan in burning heaven cliff. He saw his eldest disciple sitting cross-legged with a grim expression. He was holding a crimson redwood that was about a foot long. It was the Wutong tree's heart. At the moment, the Wutong tree's heart's color was dim and slightly black. It was not radiating heat like usual. However, be it Lin Feng or Xiao Yan, they could clearly sense that the Wutong tree's heart had not lost its vitality. On the contrary, all of its spiritual qi was gathering toward the center. It seemed like a primeval universe was being nurtured there. And it also seemed like a newborn life was being born. Lin Feng clicked his tongue in wonder in his heart. At the very beginning when I first obtained this thing, I was unable to explore the deeper secrets within. I was still thinking that it should require other divine Wutong trees, or the Phoenix bloodline. Lin Feng thought about it, and knew why the Wutong tree's heart had changed. The primordial heaven opening skill. This was the remarkable skill that Lin Feng had comprehended after attaining the Essence Soul stage. It contained the peak essence of the 4 guardians of Heaven Opening Book. Lin Feng had comprehended the great Tao of creation, hence the birth of the primordial heaven opening skill. After comprehending this power concept, Lin Feng had played with the Wutong tree's heart. There were no changes at the beginning, but the power concept of creation and the beginning of creation had affected the Wutong tree's heart, causing it to slowly transform. However, it had been given to Xiao Yan to assist him in his cultivation, so Lin Feng did not take it to heart. Xiao Yan had obtained Lin Feng's 4 guardians of Heaven Opening Book. Although he did not comprehend the wonders of creation like Lin Feng, the Tao was of the same origin. Moreover, he had the 3 great true fires and cultivated with the Wutong tree's heart day and night, which further stimulated the changes. After a long period of nurturing, the Wutong tree's heart was finally going to transform. Chapter 507. As Xiao Yan sensed the changes in the Wutong tree heart, he sensed that the signs of life in it were becoming more intense, and its self-consciousness was becoming clearer. Xiao Yan lifted his head to look at Lin Feng. Master, is the Wutong tree heart going to turn into a demon? Lin Feng looked at the Wutong tree heart rather interestedly and shook his head. This is only a tree heart. It's not a complete divine Wutong tree, but a part of it that was stripped from an extremely powerful divine Wutong tree. After postnatal cultivation, it has the potential to turn into a demon, but it's not turning into a demon now. Although it has self-consciousness and is a brand new life, it's not a demon. If I must describe it, it's a spiritual monster, and it's an existence similar to Tian Qihua. Xiao Yan scrutinized the Wutong tree heart and mumbled. This thing feels so powerful. Not bad. Although it's still very young, its power and intent realm are extraordinary, and its potential is extremely high. Lin Feng nodded and suddenly smiled. Lilian, you're no different from incubating an egg. You've incubated a pretty good treasure. Xiao Yan's expression immediately fell, and he looked at Lin Feng, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. Master, I'll admit it if it's really an egg, but it's just a piece of wood. How can I incubate it? As the master-disciple duo chatted, they watched as the Wutong tree heart's radiance dimmed completely, as if it had turned into charcoal. In the next moment, a dazzling red light suddenly erupted from the pitch-black Wutong tree heart, and a tiny figure appeared in the red light. Lin Feng and Luo Binghe looked over, and saw that it was a little girl that looked like she was carved out of jade. She looked to be only 2 or 3 years old, her chubby little hand brought up to her mouth, sucking on a pink and white finger, her 2 big black eyes rolling around. When the little girl saw Xiao Yan, her big, bright, and quick-witted eyes sparkled with joy and intimacy. She spread her arms and pounced into Xiao Yan's embrace. She's quite a cute little girl. Xiao Yan chuckled and hurriedly hugged her, but before he could even react, a clear child's voice instantly made him petrified. Father. His voice was crisp and melodious, clean and tidy. There was no hesitation at all. However, it was like a thunderclap on the ground. Xiao Yan's hand trembled. He almost threw the little girl to the ground. The eldest disciple of the celestial sect of wonders, who had always been fearless of heaven and earth. He stared dumbfoundedly at the little girl in his arms. The 2 people, one big and one small, stared at each other for a long time. Xiao Yan turned his completely stiff neck. What did you call me just now? His voice was a little unclear, as if his tongue was in a knot. The little girl was very straightforward. She called out again in a loud and clear voice, Father. Xiao Yan instantly had the urge to look at the sky at a 45-degree angle and cry speechlessly. To him, even if there was a primordial divinity realm bull standing in front of him right now, he would still dare to rush up and fight it. Even if it was the most dangerous place in the world, he would not frown. He would talk and laugh calmly as he moved forward. But now, Xiao Yan really did not know whether he should cry or laugh. I'm still a boy, so how did I suddenly become a father? After being dumbfounded at first, Xiao Yan came to a realization. Before the Wutong tree's heart gave birth to the little girl, he had been cultivating it by using his magic power, the Nanmingli fire, the Sun Real fire, and the Nether Evil light to nurture it. Once the Wutong tree's heart developed a consciousness, it naturally regarded Xiao Yan as its parent. Xiao Yan flashed a smile that was uglier than crying. He wanted to correct the little girl, but he noticed that she was looking at him with a pair of bright and pure eyes that were filled with intimacy and joy. Master? Xiao Yan looked towards Lin Feng with a bitter smile. Lin Feng smiled, saying, Only now have I discovered that you're actually the king of children under Master's tutelage. After Tian Qihua, looks like there's going to be another little tail behind you. Is this considered becoming a father? Lin Feng thought rather unscrupulously in his heart. And then he saw the little girl hanging on Xiao Yan's neck like a little koala, blinking her pair of big eyes. Her gaze looking over towards him. Her gaze even more joyful. Grandpa. The stone room was dead silent at once, and the little girl's pleasant voice was the only thing that was still echoing in the air. Lin Feng almost vomited blood on the spot, and he stared blankly at the little girl. I still remember running under the setting sun that day. That was my lost youth. Lost son of a bitch. I've become a grandfather just like that? Lin Feng smiled bitterly and glanced at Xiao Yan. Just like that. One became a father, while the other became a grandfather. Fundamentally speaking, Lin Feng's four symbols heaven-opening book's grand power conception of the universe's creation prompted the Wutong tree's heart to change. Xiao Yan also smiled bitterly. He hugged the little girl and coaxed her. Call me godfather. It's godfather, not father. The little girl put a finger in her mouth and looked at Xiao Yan in confusion. She did not understand why he had suddenly become a godfather when he was clearly a father. Lin Feng did not know whether to laugh or cry. He composed himself and asked, "What's your name?" "I'm Tong, the little girl answered in a childish voice. Lin Feng nodded. There was a rumor that, just like the phoenixes, where the phoenixes were male and the phoenixes were female, the Wutong tree was also a combination of the Wutong tree and the Wutong tree. The Wutong tree was male, and the Wutong tree was female. They lived and died together. Lin Feng looked at her and said calmly, "Yes, from today onwards, you're called Xiao Tong." The little girl nodded hard and answered loudly, "Yes." Xiao Yan was shocked and hurriedly said, "It's not Xiao Tong, it's Lin Tong, Lin Tong." He turned to look at Lin Feng with a bitter face. "Master, you really have to be merciful this time. Otherwise, I won't be able to explain it to Zhan. If she misunderstands that I'm related to the Wutong tree spirit, and ended up having this little guy, I won't be able to explain myself no matter how many mouths I have." Lin Feng smiled and said, "It's fine. Just say that I named him. I'll take the blame for this." Xiao Yan glanced at Lin Feng when he heard this. His expression was tranquil, and he was dressed in purple. He looked dignified as a teacher. "Even if I say it, it'll only work if Zhan is willing to believe me." Xiao Yan smiled bitterly and looked pitifully at Lin Feng. Lin Feng smiled and shook his head, no longer joking with him. Instead, he looked at little Lin Tong, who was still in Xiao Yan's arms. Lin Feng thought, "This little guy will be very amazing when he grows up." The master and disciple brought the little girl into the mysterious heaven eternal light paradise. Inside, Tian Qihua was still snoring, but when little Lin Tong approached, his snoring suddenly stopped. He turned over and sat up, rubbing his eyes in a daze. The fat baby, who was covered in mud and yellow, looked at little Lin Tong with sleepy eyes. The sleepiness in his eyes gradually disappeared. Tian Qihua, who usually ignored people and only focused on his fire, had a look of surprise in his eyes and started babbling. Lin Tong looked at him curiously. Xiao Yan put her on the ground, and the little girl ran to Tian Qihua's side with her short legs. Two chubby hands held each other, and red and yellow lights intertwined and flickered. Under the situation where the two colors of light shone and reflected off each other, Lin Feng and Xiao Yan could both clearly feel that their respective spirit energy was in a state of growth. The two little dolls were beaming with joy, and Lin Tong was also babbling like a lucky doll. They seemed to be able to understand each other's words, and they seemed to be incomparably joyful and happy. Xiao Yan looked at this scene and praised. Tong is formed from the Wutong tree heart. The divine Wutong tree not only has a strong vitality, but it also contains abundant and blazing fire spiritual power. Tian Qihua happens to love fire spiritual power the most. Although the Wutong tree heart doesn't have the 7 great true fires, the quality of the fire spiritual power is extremely high. Tian Qihua is formed from the Tian Qihua spiritual soil, which is the best soil for nurturing plants and spiritual trees. It can also nourish Tong. Haha, they complement each other perfectly. Lin Feng looked at the two little guys holding hands at his feet, skipping and running around him and Xiao Yan together, a smile also appearing on his face. The two of them can be a pair of playmates. He turned to look at Xiao Yan and smiled. From now on, apart from Tian Qihua, Tong will be under your care. Xiao Yan looked like he had accepted his fate and nodded helplessly. I knew you'd give me that order, master. In the following period of time, other than his own cultivation and pill refining, Xiao Yan had another job, and that was to take care of the two children. One day, Xiao Yan finally managed to get Lin Tong and Tian Qihua, who were clinging to him, to come down. Suddenly, Xiao Yan was stunned. He took out a sound transmission crystal and crushed it. Song Fu's voice came from the other side. Fellow Taoist Xiao? Xiao Yan had successfully advanced to the late stage of the golden elixir, subdued the three great true fires, and ended his seclusion. As the eldest disciple of the sect master under Lin Feng, he took over the responsibility of communicating with the outside world from Zhu Yi. Song Fu's voice was very polite. Although he was a Yuanying cultivator, and Xiao Yan hadn't formed his nascent soul yet, Song Fu didn't treat him lightly. Fellow Taoist Xiao, someone asked me to come up the mountain and pay a visit to Sect Master Lin. I hope you can report this to him. Hearing the solemnity in Song Fu's voice, Xiao Yan frowned slightly. Without ending the communication, he went to look for Lin Feng. After meeting Lin Feng, he continued to ask, "May I ask who they are and why they want to come up the mountain, Steward Song?" Song Fu paused for a while before answering. "They're from the Phoenix race of Infinite Mainland. There are 2 Phoenix race powerhouses, and one of them has already attained an indestructible demon soul." Upon hearing this, Lin Feng and Xiao Yan looked down at Lin Tong, who was playing happily with Tian Qihua. Even if you used your knees to think, you would know what the other party was after. After the Phoenix race had helped the Kuanpeng break through the manifold mystic ice, they had also entered the Kuanpeng's secret treasure. Their target must have been the Wutong Tree Heart. Unfortunately, the ancient Kuanpeng's revival was stopped by Lin Feng, and its remains were split into 2. The demonic phoenix Black Jade, which had entered the secret treasure with the black-feathered Kuanpeng, was left in the black-feathered Kuanpeng's body, while the Wutong Tree Heart was left with Lin Feng. In ancient times, there was a saying that planting a Wutong would attract phoenixes. The phoenix race was arrogant and would not perch on anything other than a Wutong. They must have taken the initiative to visit for the Wutong Tree Heart. Although they didn't know why they were looking for it, they could tell that they were determined to get it from the fact that they didn't hesitate to enter the Divine Land's human world. Xiao Yan looked at Lin Feng, and Lin Feng smiled faintly. "Let them come." As he spoke, he waved his hand and a crack appeared in the void in front of him. Boundless purple chi passed through the distant space and directly descended into the Divine Land's boundless world, arriving outside the Sand State City. Chapter 508. 2 spots of light flew out of the Sand Continent City, one red and one black. Both of them flashed with a golden radiance and emitted a powerful demonic force. However, this kind of demonic energy didn't seem ferocious or violent. Instead, it was noble and prideful, with a sense of transcendence, but it also seemed exceptionally arrogant. The spots of light landed on Lin Feng's purple aura cloud bridge. The purple aura rolled and brought them back to Jade Jing Mountain. Lin Feng silently looked at the 2 figures in front of him. As the light and shadow changed, he could vaguely see the 2 phoenixes gradually turning into human forms. When the golden light dissipated, a man and a woman appeared in front of Lin Feng. The man looked like a middle-aged man in his 40s. He was tall and thin and wore a red luxurious robe. His long hair was not tied up and casually spread behind his shoulders. His face was simple, and he had an elegant aura. Beside him was a girl in black. She looked like she was only 13 or 14 years old. She had a beautiful face and a refined aura. What they had in common was that their eyes were extremely clear. They looked at Lin Feng calmly. They were neither servile nor overbearing. Their attitudes were gentle and polite, but they kept a distance. The middle-aged man said, "Are you the master of the Celestial Gate? I'm Fei Yi from the Red Phoenix race. Greetings." The girl beside him bowed to Lin Feng. "I'm Mou from the Black Phoenix race. Greetings, master of the Celestial Gate." Lin Feng's gaze landed on Fei Yi, and he felt the demonic energy around him fluctuate majestically. It was not ostentatious, nor was it purposely suppressed. It just spread out like this, revealing that he has already formed an indestructible demon soul. Unlike the Golden Crow, Cheongqi and other demon clans, where a great saint-level demon beast would be surrounded and killed by the human experts when it came to the vast land of the Divine Land, the Phoenix clan was a little special. They rarely entered the vast land of the Divine Land, and even if they did, most of the human cultivators would turn a blind eye to them. The Phoenix race had always been independent in the demon realm. They never intervened in the disputes of others. Because of their powerful strength, others were not willing to provoke them. All along, this race had pursued the policy of an isolated island, and was almost independent of Tianhuang mainland. Although they were not completely isolated, they rarely interacted with the outside world. Because of this reason, the Phoenix clan rarely participated in the war between the human clan and the demon clan. Moreover, the Phoenix clan was noble and peaceful. Even if powerful warriors occasionally entered the divine land, as long as no one provoked them, the Phoenix clan would not cause any damage to the human clan. Therefore, in the past 10,000 years, the relationship between the Phoenix clan and the cultivation world of the human clan had been relatively harmonious. Of course, this was also related to the powerful strength of the Phoenix clan. Including the three Holy Lands, no one was willing to completely push the Phoenix clan to the opposite side of the divine land. Lin Feng's gaze shifted to the other side, and he looked at Mou as he sensed the fluctuations of her demonic energy. She's slightly familiar. The phoenix that broke through the 1,000-year-old ice and followed the rock into the treasure trove seemed to be her? With a glance, Lin Feng could tell that Mou was currently at the late-stage Demon King realm. Moreover, compared to the lifespan of the Phoenix clan, she was still very young. Being able to cultivate to this realm at such a young age, she should be one of the top geniuses even in the Phoenix clan. Long Yi, who had not fought with Yan Mingyue in the past, and had yet to achieve an indestructible demon soul. Fox Yan Yan of the Heavenly Fox clan. The black feather rock that entered the treasure trove in an attempt to resurrect the ancient rock, and Mou in front of him. Presumably, they were the rising stars of the demon clan in recent years. At this moment, they had already risen, and were only waiting for an indestructible demon soul to completely ascend to the stage. Among them, Long Yi was even one step ahead of them. While Lin Feng was sizing them up, Fei Yi and Mou were also silently observing him. However, whether it was Mou or Fei Yi who had already achieved an indestructible demon soul, they found that they could not see through Lin Feng at all. It was not that he was immeasurably powerful, but at this moment, in front of them, Lin Feng was like an ordinary person who had not cultivated Tao at all. The question was this possible? It was precisely because of this that Fei Yi and Mou felt that Lin Feng was unfathomable. At this moment, Xiao Yan had also come out of the mysterious Heaven Time Cave, silently standing behind Lin Feng. He naturally fell into the eyes of Fei Yi and Mou. This time, they could see through the level of Xiao Yan's cultivation at a glance. There was no mistaking his cultivation at the late stage of the golden elixir. But Fei Yi and Mou could faintly sense that there was an extremely terrifying aura hidden in Xiao Yan's body. Fei Yi was fine, but Mou, who was already at the late stage of the Demon King realm, and was only a step away from achieving an indestructible demon soul, actually felt a sense of danger when looking at Xiao Yan. It was as if this young man in purple clothes with black clothes on the outside had the ability to endanger her life. Although Mou did not show it on the surface, he was actually surprised in the bottom of his heart, even though there was a difference of an entire great realm between them. Lin Feng calmly looked at Fei Yi and Mou and faintly said, "What are the two of you here for?" Fei Yi straightforwardly said, "In the past, our clan had a supreme treasure called the Wutong Tree Heart. 10,000 years ago, we lent it to the Ocean Sky Kuanping Sage. Later on, the Ocean Sky Kuanping Sage perished in the Divine Land, causing our clan's supreme treasure to be lost in the Arctic Sea of the Divine Land. The Ocean Sky Kuanping Sage was the Ocean Sky Kuanping Sage, who achieved the third level of the indestructible demon soul in ancient times. Previously, the current patriarch of the Kuanping clan, the Azure Sky Kuanping Sage, sent his son Heiyu into the Ocean Sky Kuanping Sage's inheritance. My clan's junior, Mou, also went with him to retrieve the lost Wutong Tree Heart." As Fei Yi spoke, he looked at Mou, who was beside him. But in the end, a great change occurred and they failed. Fei Yi looked at Lin Feng and silently said, "This time we came in the hope that the Celestial Gate Master can return our clan's treasure." Lin Feng smiled and did not say anything. Naturally, Xiao Yan, who was standing behind him, did not say anything either. For a moment, both parties did not say anything and the situation became a little awkward. Xiaoyan raised his eyebrows and his expression gradually became strange. He used his transcendence energy to transmit his voice to Lin Feng. Master, is this phoenix trying to get something for nothing? Lin Feng smiled. That's not the case. It's just that this clan's way of thinking is like this. According to the Phoenix clan's moral standards and way of thinking, it's normal for me to retrieve something that I've lost. It's only natural for me to return it to its rightful owner, no matter what happened before. Even if you didn't snatch this thing from me, since you picked it up, you should return it to me. There's no such thing as a transaction. Don't think of asking me to repay you. I don't need to express any gratitude to you, because it's mine to begin with. On the contrary, if I picked up your thing, I would definitely return it to you regardless of the cost. I might even take the initiative to return it to you. From the way Fei Yi Mou, and the rest thought since they were young, this was a matter of course. After listening to Lin Feng's words, Xiaoyan grinned. To be honest, this Wudong tree's heart has changed hands a few times, so its ownership should have been redefined long ago. Does it really belong to him just because he said it's his? At the very least, it's his, but that doesn't mean others have to follow his moral standards. The corner of Lin Feng's mouth curled up into a light smile. So since ancient times, when the Phoenix race and other races have conflicts, it's usually because other people have provoked them, then they fight back. In a few cases, the Phoenix race initiates a fight. It's all because of the clash of ideas. Xiaoyan remained calm and collected, but he began to scrutinize Fei Yi and Mou. Master, what are they doing? Trying peaceful means before resorting to force? Not really. I can only say that they're testing us. They want to see if we have the same ideologies as them. Lin Feng smiled unconcernedly. At this point in time, as long as it's not a completely irreconcilable conflict or a life and death enmity, then there's no power in the entire heaven primal world that will easily start a war with the Xian Gate Sky Sect. No one was willing to provoke the Phoenix clan, but similarly, no one would easily provoke Lin Feng. Xiaoyan asked, Master, then we? Lin Feng replied faintly, they don't have a say in today's matter, so there's no need for us to say anything. The person involved can make her own decision. Xiaoyan came to a realization. That's right. Tong already has her own consciousness, so she should make her own decision. Finally, Lin Feng instructed. There's no need to inform Tong in advance, and there's no need to instill her thoughts in advance. Let her make her own decision. Master? Xiaoyan was a little surprised, but when he saw Lin Feng's indifferent expression, Xiaoyan revealed a thoughtful expression. The exchange of sound transmissions between the master and disciple ended. Lin Feng opened his mouth and said, Go bring Tong over to see the two of the Phoenix race. Xiaoyan nodded his head, his figure disappearing on the spot. After Xiaoyan left, Fei Yi and Mou's expressions slightly relaxed. The awkward atmosphere just now was indeed a little awkward. Aside from Lin Feng and his disciple, Fei Yi and Mou were also secretly communicating with each other. Uncle, if the master of the Celestial Gate insists on not returning our Wutong tree heart, what should we do? Mou asked. The tree sovereign has been waiting for us. Fei Yi's expression did not change. After a moment of silence, he said, Right now the clan is also divided into two factions. One faction thinks that we should negotiate with Xianmen Tianzong and take back the tree heart through peaceful means. The other faction thinks that we should simply take back the tree heart by force and not bow to the greed of humans. Mou frowned slightly. The ideology of the human clan is too different from ours. Fei Yi said, the price of fighting with Xianmen Tianzong is too high, but we have to be mentally prepared in this regard. As the two of them were talking, they heard Lin Feng asking Xiaoyan to bring the Wutong tree heart over. For a moment, they were relieved. After all, just standing in front of Lin Feng on Mount Yujing made them feel pressured. However, Fei Yi and Mou were slightly stunned when they heard the term Tong. Does this mean that the Wutong tree heart has already become a spirit and developed its own consciousness? Has it become a spirit? This was somewhat out of their expectations. However, the two phoenixes were still confident that as long as Lin Feng and his disciple did not stop them, They believed that they could successfully convince little Lin Tong to return to Infinite Wilderness with them. After all, that's her hometown, and her clansmen are there. Even if she hasn't become a demon, she's still a divine Wutong. Fei Yi and Mou exchanged glances as the same thought appeared in their minds. Very soon, Xiao Yan returned with little Lin Tong. The little fellow sucked on her fingers and looked at Fei Yi and Mou curiously with her big eyes. Her intuition told her that these two strangers were rather close to her. Fei Yi and Mou were instantly more confident when they noticed Lin Tong's gaze. The phoenixes and the Wutong had been companions for countless years, so it was impossible for their bloodline to be severed. Fei Yi was in a good mood. If the master of the Celestial Gate and his disciple don't interfere, and let this little girl make her own decision, then there won't be a problem at all. Chapter 509. From Fei Yi and Mou's point of view, although little Lin Tong had interacted with Lin Feng and his disciple previously, it shouldn't have been long. Even if they had some feelings for each other, it shouldn't be able to overcome the attachment of blood relatives. Little Lin Tong had an extraordinary background, and was nurtured into a spirit by the Wutong tree heart. Although she was young and ignorant, she was extremely talented and could clearly sense the closeness between her and the other divine Wutong trees and the Phoenix clan. Therefore, Fei Yi and Mou were very confident that they could convince little Lin Tong to return to Infinite Wilderness vast land with them. Especially when they saw little Lin Tong's ignorant look as if she didn't know what was going on. Fei Yi and Mou's mood became even better. Looks like the master of Xian Gate and his disciple didn't tell her what happened in advance, so they definitely wouldn't have instilled thoughts in advance to affect her judgment. Mou thought, if that's the case, this master of Xian Gate is also a rather magnanimous person. He disdains doing such petty tricks. Fei Yi had the same thought. This trip was finally worthwhile. It's naturally for the best if we can avoid a conflict with Xianmen Tianzong. As they thought about it, the two phoenixes explained the purpose of their visit to little Lin Tong. Lin Tong nestled in Xiao Yan's embrace and sucked on her fingers as she asked, "After I go to Infinite Wilderness vast land, can I still return to the mountain?" Fei Yi smiled without saying anything, while Mou also smiled and looked at Lin Tong. "Of course you can. After returning to the Wutong forest, we won't restrict your freedom. You can come out to relax, but for your safety, we'll escort you." Fei Yi nodded and thought. She's been together with the master of Xian Gate and his disciple for a period of time after all. It's normal for her to have some feelings for him. This child is very good. As they thought about it, they suddenly noticed that little Lin Tong's expression was a little off. Her smile disappeared and her delicate brows gradually furrowed. She interrupted Mou with a childish voice. "You mean, I'll be staying at your side for a long time, and can only come back to see Daddy and Grandpa occasionally? Of course, the Wutong Forest is your home after all." Fei Yi and Mou didn't react at first, but they suddenly noticed the main point in Lin Tong's words and couldn't help but be stunned. "Daddy and Grandpa?" At this time, Lin Tong was already shouting, "If that's the case, I don't want it. I'm not going with you." Lin Tong stretched out her chubby arms and hugged Xiao Yan's neck. "I want to live with Daddy and Grandpa." Xiao Yan was half distressed and half dotingly rubbed her little head. "I've told you many times that I'm your godfather, not your father." He turned to look at the other side and saw that Fei Yi and Mou's expressions were as if they had swallowed a dead rat. Fei Yi took a deep breath and looked at Lin Tong. Then at Lin Feng and Xiao Yan. "This child wasn't born naturally, but was nurtured by your esteemed master and disciple?" He quickly understood the reason behind this and immediately felt a headache coming on. Lin Feng lightly said, "This little guy is pure and innocent. I hope the two of you won't blame him for his rudeness." Fei Yi and Mou nodded helplessly. This time they really didn't know what to do. If the Wutong tree's heart did not have its own consciousness, it would be treated as an object. Whether it was Fei Yi or Mou, according to their morals, it was natural for them to retrieve something that they had lost. However, the Wutong tree's heart had its own consciousness and turned into a spirit monster. It was an independent life with its own thoughts, so it could no longer be regarded as someone's possession. Of course, if it was someone else, they could disregard Lin Tong's wishes and directly force her, but that was clearly not what the Phoenix Association would do. Even if they really wanted to do it, Lin Feng was still standing there. If they had the guts to behave atrociously on Jade Capital Mountain, they would be annihilated at any moment. It's one thing for the little girl to go with you willingly, but it's another if she dared to snatch it from you. Fei Yi and Mou looked at little Lin Tong gloomily, and were somewhat speechless. If Lin Tong was born naturally from the Wutong tree's heart, then the relationship between her and Lin Feng as master and disciple was at most the relationship they had during this period of time together. Children were ignorant. Although they were easily bewitched, they could still make a decision when faced with the natural bloodline relationship between the Wutong tree's clan and the Phoenix clan. Unfortunately, Lin Tong was not born naturally. Instead, she was nurtured and enlightened by Lin Feng and Xiaoyan respectively. Only then did she develop her consciousness and turn into a spirit monster. In her mind, Lin Feng and his disciple were the closest elders and blood relatives. They were the people closest to her psychologically, whereas the Phoenix and the Wutong tree were ranked second. Whether it was birth or nurturing, Lin Feng and his disciple had priority over the Wutong tree's clan, and the Phoenix clan in Lin Tong's mind. This immediately made Fei Yi and Mou feel conflicted. They did not want to force Lin Tong, but the goal of this trip was to bring Lin Tong back to the Wutong tree forest in Infinite Mainland. However, no matter how hard they tried, they could not persuade Lin Tong to go back to Infinite Mainland with them. Let alone staying for a long time, the little girl was not willing to go even if it was just a short trip. She hugged Xiaoyan's neck tightly, and looked at the two phoenixes with vigilance. She looked like she was looking at two human traffickers who were about to abduct a little girl. Fei Yi and Mou felt like crying when they saw Lin Tong's gaze. Bring Tong over there to play first. Lin Feng opened his mouth and said to Xiaoyan at this time. Xiaoyan nodded his head, coaxing Lin Tong while walking away some distance. Lin Tong looked at Fei Yi and Mou warily before quickly burrowing back into Xiaoyan's arms. The two phoenixes did not know whether to laugh or cry when they saw that. Tong's meaning is very clear. This is her personal wish, and I will not interfere. Lin Feng said lightly. The two of you can stay on the mountain for a day or two and try to persuade Tong. But if she doesn't change her mind, then forgive me for not keeping the two of you here. Fei Yi and Mou fell into silence at the same time. Slowly Fei Yi said, In that case, thank you for your magnanimity, Mystic Gate Master. I'm afraid we will have to trouble you for another day. In the following day, the two phoenixes tried their best to persuade Lin Tong to go back to Infinite Mainland with them. At this moment, they no longer hoped that Lin Tong could return to their clan, and only hoped that she could go to the Wutong tree forest. However, no matter how much the two of them talked, the little girl just shook her head and refused to agree. It was Fei Yi and Mou's fault for not understanding the situation clearly and speaking too confidently, causing little Lin Tong to misunderstand that they were plotting to separate her from her grandfather and father. This made the little fellow completely put the names of the two phoenixes into the blacklist. Even if the two of them now put their conditions more broadly, and the promises they made were more superior, the little girl would only think that they were deceiving her with flowery words. Little Tong had now transformed into a revolutionary warrior with an incomparably strong will, tenacious style, and firm stand. No matter what Fei Yi and Mou said, she would not budge at all and would not budge an inch. Even Lin Feng and Xiaoyan felt distressed when they saw Fei Yi, a dignified great sage of the demon race, being overwrought with coaxing the child. Master, why do they insist on taking Tong back? Xiaoyan was a little puzzled. He now had some understanding of the Phoenix race's character, and knew that this race despised deceit and hypocrisy. They were even more disdainful to do that. Since Fei Yi and Mou only promised to take Lin Tong to the Wutong tree forest, and not to stay there for a long time, then they should be serious and not trying to deceive her with empty words. But why did they go through so much trouble to take Lin Tong back? Or perhaps he should ask, why did they want the Wutong tree heart? Lin Feng pondered and said, I don't know the specific reason, but I'm sure that what they want to do must be done through Tong's help. In this matter, Tong is irreplaceable. Tong or is the wood heart born from a female divine wutong tree? The wutong tree is the combination of a wutong tree and a tong tree. The wutong tree is a male tree and the tong tree is a female tree. They grow and age together, and live and die together. He looked at little Lin Tong and said faintly, "Under what circumstances is Tong irreplaceable? There's only one possibility. Something happened to the male wutong tree that she was born from back then, and they needed the wutong tree to solve the problem." Xiaoyan came to a realization. Just like the soaring snow plume that little junior brother raised in the heaven-barren valley, they only have one partner in life and death. It's the same for the wutong tree. Every wutong tree will only have one wutong tree as its partner in life, and vice versa? Lin Feng nodded and did not say anything. He thought to himself, without the wutong tree will wither. Since the wutong tree has lost its wood heart, it will naturally wither and die. The wutong tree might be able to survive with the existence of the wood heart. However, the wutong tree heart has been lost in the Kunpeng's mystic treasure for 10,000 years. How did the wutong tree survive these 10,000 years? While Lin Feng and his disciple were gossiping, Fei Yi and Mou were on the verge of tears. They talked until their saliva was dry, but Lin Tong still refused to return to Infinite Mainland with them. Helpless, the two phoenixes could only return to look for Lin Feng. "Master and disciple, please help to persuade her to return to Infinite Mainland with us," Fei Yi said helplessly. "We'll escort her back after a period of time and won't disturb her for a long time after that," Fei Yi said helplessly. They initially thought that the two of them could bring Lin Tong away easily. Who would have thought that they would have to ask for Lin Feng's help in the end? To the phoenixes, asking for help this time was not a matter of course. Instead, they were asking for someone's help and owed them a favor. Fei Yi and Mou were well aware of this point. However, they could not convince Lin Tong to return to the Wutong Forest with them, so they could only look for Lin Feng for help. Lin Feng's expression was the same as usual, and he was not arrogant at all. He merely asked indifferently, "I need to know why you want to bring Tong, or back to Infinite Mainland." "Don't worry, Master of the Mystic Sect. She won't be harmed at all," Fei Yi said after a moment of hesitation. "It's the Wutong Tree Sovereign who urgently needs her help." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.